A knight's path begins. Rain, do you know why the maximum age for a page is 14? Clea's voice cut through the quiet study, calm yet commanding. Rain hesitated, unsure of the answer. I'm not certain, Lady Clea. Clea smiled faintly, her tone taking on a teacherly edge. Because 14 is the latest age to begin learning breathing techniques. After that, the body's rapid developmental phase ends, making it nearly impossible to train breathing techniques to a high level. She gestured to a rolled parchment on the table. The scroll I've given you contains the giant bear breathing technique, as well as instructions for using a secret potion. This will help develop your constitution fully, enough to carry you to the level of a third-tier knight attendant. As for the advanced magic potion required for promotion to a formal knight, Clea paused, her gaze distant, as if weighing some internal debate. You won't need to concern yourself with that yet. Your priority should be building a solid foundation. Rushing ahead would be counterproductive. Clea's eyes softened slightly as she continued. I will be leaving Habsburg Manor soon. I've also left some black tongue oil for you. Shadia will ensure it is delivered when needed. The sudden shift in Clea's expression startled Rain. Her eyes, piercing yet warm, locked onto his. Tell me, Rain, why did you decide to join the page training program? Under her unyielding gaze, Rain found himself unable to muster a falsehood. After an awkward pause, he confessed, I want to pass the assessment and become a guard of Habsburg Manor. Clea's laughter rang out, light and melodious, yet tinged with amusement. A guard? How uninspired. Rain flushed but said nothing as Clea continued. Why not aim higher? Set your sights on becoming a true knight. If you achieve that before you turn 18, I promise you'll earn the right to be one of my followers. If not, her smile turned faintly cold. You can remain a guard. Before Rain could respond, Clea's tone grew serious. However, you must keep this matter secret, both the breathing technique and my promise. If word spreads, it could bring trouble, both for you and for me. Rain's heart raced at her words. A knight! The prospect of rising above the rank of a mere guard and gaining power was exhilarating. Yet the secrecy troubled him. Why the need for such precautions? Was this part of some greater intrigue? Could Clea be preparing for an inheritance battle or staking a claim for the earlship of Habsburg? Rain pushed the questions aside. For now, what mattered most was growth. Challenges would come, but with this opportunity, I could rise above them. Clea's voice brought him back to the present. Take some time to study the technique. Once you're ready, I'll guide you through its essentials. Yes, Lady Clea, Rain replied, bowing deeply. The first step. Rain unrolled the parchment with care, his eyes scanning the 7 movements of the giant bear breathing technique. Each posture was distinct, progressing from simple to complex. The first movement seemed straightforward, a single-leg lunge with arms extended horizontally, synchronized with steady breathing. Eager to begin, Rain stood and attempted the movement. At first, it felt manageable, but within minutes, his legs wobbled, his breathing grew ragged, and sweat poured from his brow. By the 5-minute mark, his body gave out, and he collapsed panting. Miss Clea, is there a trick to this? He asked, rubbing his sore thighs. Clea chuckled softly. The breathing technique is all about control. Your breath must remain steady, and you must focus on the sensations within your body. Only then will it strengthen you. She handed him a small black bottle. This is Kuroki oil. Apply it to your thighs, knees, and shoulders. It will enhance your perception of the changes in your body during practice. Rain accepted the bottle, uncorking it to reveal a musky, earthy aroma. The amber-colored liquid felt warm against his palm as he applied it under Clea's guidance. When he resumed the posture, the difference was immediate. The burning warmth from the oil eased his fatigue and heightened his awareness of every muscle contraction. With renewed focus, he adjusted his breathing to match the movements. The breakthrough. You have practiced the giant bear breathing technique. Comprehension improved. You have acquired a new skill, giant bear breathing technique. Your giant bear breathing technique skill has been enhanced. Experience +1. Ding. Host triggered the core event for night attendant class change. Comprehension of the giant bear breathing technique. Rain's eyes widened as a cascade of notifications appeared before him. The system outlined the prerequisites for advancing to Knight Attendant. Militia LV3 or above. Strength, agility, and constitution at 8 points or higher. Proficiency in rider, shield defense, archery, or swordsmanship skills at specified levels. Rain's excitement was tempered by the realization that he fell short on several requirements. Still, he was thrilled to have a clear roadmap. Now I know exactly where to begin improving, he thought. Reflections. After the session, Clea dismissed him with a parting instruction. Rest well tonight. We'll continue tomorrow. On his way back to the dormitory, Rain reflected on the day's events. He realized that Clea's support was invaluable. Without her guidance and access to resources like the explosive bear meat and Kuroki oil, his progress would have been painfully slow. Rain resolved to prove himself worthy of her investment. If I can show my value, I'll secure the support I need to rise on the transcendent path. As he returned to his quarters, Rain felt a mix of exhaustion and exhilaration. Today had been a beginning. Tomorrow, he would take the next step, the awakening of potential. The recent system prompt had left Rain both elated and contemplative. It provided him with a deeper understanding of his golden finger, a tool that seemed perfectly attuned to his growth. The giant bear breathing technique LV1, 1 out of 100, now appeared under the militia profession panel. While it didn't perfectly fit there, it was far more appropriate than placing it under his blacksmith apprentice panel. As he pondered his advancement requirements, Rain managed to hold the first posture of the technique for an impressive 15 minutes, an improvement from his earlier struggle to last 5. Clea, who observed his progress with a keen eye, gave a nod of approval. Very good, Rain. Once you can sustain this posture for over 30 minutes, you'll be ready for the next step. Rain felt a flicker of pride at her praise. Though his physical constitution was lacking, his quick comprehension was making up for it. Still, he knew his improvement wasn't entirely due to raw talent. His wandering mind technique, gleaned from past experiences, had undoubtedly helped him push through the discomfort. Nearby, the chief made Shadia watched with a mix of amazement and respect. At this rate, it's no wonder Lady Clea holds Rain in such high regard. Her ability to see potential in people is truly remarkable. Suddenly, a new notification appeared before Rain. Congratulations! Your constitution attribute has increased. Startled, he immediately opened his panel to confirm. His constitution had indeed risen from 5 to 6. Rain's thoughts raced. He hadn't spent any points, nor had his professions leveled up. So why had it increased? The answer seemed obvious. The giant bear breathing technique. But upon further reflection, Rain realized it couldn't solely be the breathing technique. His previous swordsmanship training must have set the stage, and today's practice had simply pushed him over the threshold. Whatever the reason, the result was undeniable. The fatigue in his muscles faded, replaced by a newfound vitality. Encouraged, Rain attempted the first posture again. This time, he lasted 22 minutes, shocking Shadia yet again. Clea, too, looked pleased. A promising knight candidate, she murmured. Understanding the standard, dripping with sweat, Rain finished his third attempt and turned to Clea with a question. Lady Clea, what's the fastest time someone has taken to master the first posture of the giant bear breathing technique? He asked not to boast, but to gauge his own progress and ensure he wasn't drawing unwanted attention by advancing too quickly. Clea's smile held a trace of amusement. The fastest I've seen? 5 minutes to grasp the essentials, followed by holding the posture for 30 minutes straight. Rain's expression froze. 5 minutes. Compared to that prodigy, his progress seemed painfully slow. Clea didn't seem to notice his internal turmoil. That's enough for today, Rain. Rest well. Over the next few days, Shadia will guide you here for continued practice. The breathing technique scroll will remain in her care. Yes, Lady Clea. Chief Maid Shadia, Rain replied, bowing before leaving the garden. Reflections on the Transcendent Path. As Rain walked back to the dormitory, his excitement faded into serious contemplation. He had received the giant bear breathing technique only because Clea recognized his potential. Without her, even with the system, his journey onto the Transcendent Path would have been far more arduous. For commoners, stepping onto this path was exponentially harder than it was for noble science. Resources were the main obstacle. Take the explosive bear meat, for example. The sheer energy it provided was unmatched by any regular meal. Without it, his constitution wouldn't have supported continuous practice. This type of meat was either incredibly expensive or dangerously difficult to obtain. Then there was the black balsam oil. Its recipe was likely a tightly guarded secret, and its raw materials must have been rare or costly. Practicing without it had been grueling and inefficient. With it, his training had become 3 to 5 times more effective. Finally, there was the advanced magic potion Clea had mentioned. Even for her, a noble, it seemed like a resource requiring great effort to acquire. Rain realized that advancing smoothly on this path required both wealth and powerful allies. To secure those, he needed to prove his value. This principle, universal across both his past and present lives, was a truth he couldn't ignore. Dormitory gossip. When Rain entered the servant dormitory, George rushed over, his curiosity plain. "Rain, what did the chief maid want with you?" The room fell silent, every boy straining to hear his answer. Rain smirked, enjoying their anticipation. "Guess," he said playfully. "Get out of here." George laughed, though his eyes still brimmed with curiosity. While George didn't press further, whispers broke out among the other boys. No wonder Rain dared to stand up to Thickbrows. His family must have connections. Yeah, maybe he's not as simple as he seems. But isn't Rain just a farmer's son? Rain ignored the rumors, his mind preoccupied with more important matters. A change in routine. The next morning, Rain's entry-level training involved playing with puppies under the dog trainer's supervision. The trainer explained that the purpose of this activity was to build trust and intimacy between the dogs and their handlers. Rain, however, found the exercise tedious. "I want to practice swordsmanship. I want to train breathing techniques," he thought, frustration building. Still, he held on to a sliver of hope that this might trigger a new profession panel, such as beast tamer. After the day's training, Rain followed the maid back to Clea's study. Another piece of explosive bear meat awaited him, this time a tender cut from the ribs. As he ate, his thoughts wandered. "I've heard bear paws are the best part. Maybe one day I'll get to try that too." He assumed the evening would mirror the previous day, filled with breathing technique practice. But to his surprise, Clea had other plans. "Rain, after practicing the first posture once, I'd like to spar with you," she announced. Rain's heart soared. After 2 days of playing with dogs, this was the opportunity he had been waiting for. Finally, a chance to sharpen his swordsmanship skills.
Hey, welcome to Firescale Audiobooks. If you enjoy our audiobooks, please consider subscribing to the channel. Also, feel free to share your review in the comments section below.
Ding, ding, dang, dang. Rain Carlin, giving his all, could still only hold out for about half a minute against Clea, who was deliberately holding back before quickly being defeated. Despite the sparring loss, there wasn't a trace of dejection on Rain's face, and there was even a hint of pleasure. Because a delightful system prompt sounded. "Your skill, basic swordsmanship, has improved. Experience plus 29. You have engaged in a battle. Militia profession experience points plus 17. The chief maid, Shadia, watching the duel, looked admiringly at Rain, who showed no sign of discouragement, and thought to herself, "This is perhaps the reason Lady Crea values Rain. He never gets disheartened by failure." There are many young talents in Meister County whose strength outshines Rain's like stars in the sky, but none have Rain's temperament. After losing a spar with Lady Crea, they either wear a look of shame, or they keep pestering shamelessly. No one is like Rain, who still looks delighted after a defeat. He truly loves swordsmanship. Clea, seeing Rain still eager to try again, had an even more appreciative look in her eyes, and she said in her clear voice, "Rain, your speed and strength are on par with mine. You should have been able to last longer. But do you know why you were defeated so quickly?" Is my swordsmanship still too weak?" Rain scratched his head. "Not entirely. Did you notice that every time you attack, you make your intentions too obvious?" the girl said while demonstrating with her bouncy long legs. "When you attack, look straight ahead, use the corner of your eyes to lock onto the target, and at no time should you expose your attacking intentions. Initially, Rain listened with a relaxed attitude, but as the noble girl spoke these words, Rain's expression turned serious as well, because Clea was teaching him extremely crucial combat skills. If Clea hadn't suddenly pointed this out, it would have taken Rain much longer to realize it. Catching the enemy off guard. Is that what you mean? Very well summed up, the girl praised. That's exactly it. Once you reveal your attack intentions too soon, an experienced enemy will immediately dodge or block your attack route. Some may even deliberately lure you to attack their intentionally exposed weak spots, then quickly counterattack and defeat you. After pondering for a moment, Rain understood the girl's point. Please, Lady Clea, let's try again. The girl nodded, signaling that Rain could attack again. This time, as Rain attacked, he kept his gaze level with the girl, his movements as light as a willow in the wind, and he swiftly took a step forward, thrusting his sword straight. The girl deftly blocked and stepped to the right, avoiding Rain's attack. This time, Rain's gaze stayed fixed on the girl, but he did not focus intently on any specific part of her body, which slightly slowed down Clea's anticipation compared to before, and the duel lasted noticeably longer than their previous bout. Suddenly, seizing an opportunity, Rain surged forward with a lunge, swinging a chopping attack, which the girl once again evaded with ease. During the exchanges deliberately set up by the girl, Rain and Clea went back and forth, with the sound of ding-ding-dang-dang of weapons clashing continuously echoing in the area. After a minute, exhausted, Rain lay on the ground, drenched in sweat. Although he was tired, the satisfying feeling of the exhilarating fight was so invigorating that Rain felt a tinge of longing for more. Your skill, basic swordsmanship, has improved, experience plus 37. You have engaged in a battle, militia profession experience points plus 21. And then, there were those handfuls of experience points. Rain, I notice you have a particular interest in swordsmanship. And that's good, but also not so good. Clea saw that after every swordplay duel, Rain's unparalleled passion was rekindled. But breath control is the foundation. You need to spend more time to master the giant bear breathing technique's 7 movements as soon as possible. The sooner you master them, the better for your body's development, Clea advised. Yes, Lady Clea. Although Rain responded in this way, he couldn't help but sigh inwardly. You don't understand, my lady. Only by sparring more can I improve quickly. Rain had never felt time fly by so quickly. He now somewhat understood the feelings of those wealthy clients from his previous life's gym, who spent small fortunes inviting beautiful personal trainers to accompany their workouts. Just like now, with him not spending a penny, the youngest daughter of the Earl was his workout partner. Today's practice had already ended, but Rain was already looking forward to the next session. For 4 consecutive days, it was like this, and Rain's strength improved by leaps and bounds. Giant bear breathing technique LV2, 12 out of 300. With the aid of the precious items, bear meat and black pine oil, Rain had already started practicing the second pose of the giant bear breathing technique, which resembled the Russian kettlebell swing, but was far more difficult than the first pose. Rain could only persist for 5 minutes at present, a far cry from the half-hour mark. However, it still added a bit of strength to Rain, bringing his strength to 7 points, surpassing that of an average adult. Though there wasn't much change in Rain's physical attributes data, his battle awareness had changed significantly. It could be said that the swordsmanship instructor Humbert taught Rain how to wield a sword, but Clea taught Rain how to truly fight. Name: Rain Carlin. Profession: Blacksmith Apprentice LV3, 265/500, Militiaman LV3, 78/500. Constitution 6. Strength 7. Agility 7. Spirit 8. Remaining attribute points 1. Remaining skill points 1. Basic swordsmanship LV4, 578/1000. Basic swordsmanship had still not leveled up, requiring too much experience, but although the swordsmanship had not leveled up, Rain felt his basic swordsmanship was slowly improving. The profession level of the militiaman, having risen to LV3, contributed another attribute point and a skill point to Rain. This time, Rain did not rush to allocate his points. The poses of the giant bear breathing technique became increasingly difficult, The second pose, though challenging, was certainly much easier compared to the third. He planned to wait until he reached level 3 of the breathing technique, then directly add points to move up to level 4. Saturday had come around again, and Rain could go home for a visit. Just as Rain was walking out of the castle in high spirits, accompanied by the beautiful maid, they encountered a tall young man dressed like a noble. "Master Dennis," said the pretty maid upon seeing the other party, seemingly trembling slightly, and greeted him fearfully. Although Rain didn't recognize the individual, he also inclined his body immediately in deference. This young man named Dennis glanced at them both and continued on his way, expressionless. However, having walked a small distance, he suddenly stopped. Watching the departing Rain, he seemed to recall something. Isn't that the commoner Clea seemed to appreciate a bit? And Rain, having left the Habsburg estate, walked along the main artery of the town, facing the evening breeze. Evening had fallen, and groups of 3 night watchmen, each holding a torch and clad in tight leather armor, had started adding oil to the street lamps. In this world, the night watchman's responsibilities Rain had come to understand primarily involved maintaining civil order at night, firefighting, dealing with wild beasts or other unknown creatures that struck from the shadows, and handling emergencies. During the relatively safe daylight hours, however, the duty of maintaining public security fell to officers of civil order. But whether night watchmen or officers of civil order, both were under the jurisdiction of the imperial authorities' local law enforcement and were a separate concept from ordinary militiamen. This distinction was apparent from their fine leather armor and the horn bows on their backs and bastard swords hanging at their waists. As Rain hurried to his front door, he saw his thinly clad neighbor, a young girl named Anna, holding a small basket and waiting in the slightly chilly autumn wind. When she heard footsteps and looked up to see Rain returning, her face lit up with a sweet, dimpled smile, and she approached him saying, "Rain, this is a pie I made from the wild blueberries and hazelnuts you gave me last time. I wanted to give it to you earlier, but Bowie told me you had gone for child servant training and only came back Saturday nights." Looking at the small basket the girl handed over, a soft spot in Rain's heart was touched. This girl, whose fate was so bleak, always kept gratitude and kindness in her heart. He had merely let Bowie give her some wild fruits he had found, yet she thought about how to repay him. It was late autumn now, the evening breeze was cool after dark, and the thinly dressed girl had been waiting for him at the door all this time. Looking at the neatly arranged 5 slices of pie in the basket, Rain didn't even know what to say for a moment. After a long while, Rain stammered out, "You've given them all to me. What about you?" "I've kept a few slices, which is enough for me." The girl saw Rain accept the basket, smiled again, and cheerily turned to leave. Rain stared blankly at the girl, realizing he had even forgotten to say thank you. When Rain entered the house, Bowie saw the small blue basket in Rain's hands and gleefully asked, "Brother, is this for me?" Rain smiled and patted his little sister on the head. "This was made by your sister Anna." "Ah? Sister Anna made it? No wonder she hasn't been playing with me lately. She said she was helping Aunt Mary." "Helping?" "Yes. Hardly anyone in the town wants to employ Sister Anna, but occasionally Aunt Mary lets Sister Anna help out. Sister Anna is very poor, and making pies requires flour, which is expensive. Sister Anna can only afford to buy flour by helping out." Bowie, with her innocent big eyes, looked at Rain and clearly narrated. Rain looked at the pies in the basket and fell silent. After dinner with the family, Rain went back to his room early and lay down to rest. But he tossed and turned, unable to sleep. Suddenly, Rain thought he heard faint cries and the sound of something heavy falling next door. In his house? Rain's pupils dilated, immediately thinking of the recent child disappearance cases in the town. Could it be that the criminals had targeted Anna? Suddenly, a rush of blood surged to his head. At once, Rain jumped out of bed like a carp, looked around, grabbed a carpenter's hammer from the utility room, and dashed out as nimbly as a cat. As he approached Anna's front door, the rustling voices, which had been unclear at first, were now increasingly clear. "This girl has a fierce temper. After you're done, boss, let me have a taste. There's just her in this house. Don't worry, we're going to have a lovely night, hee. Damn, it's been a while since we had someone this tender." This is going to be enjoyable. Not to mention Scarface, you've picked a nice spot. Aside from being a bit skinny, the girl is pretty. Another voice known as the boss spoke up. After we're done, we can even sell her to the Brotherhood of the Wilderness. They've recently raised their prices, so we can make good money. Boss, you can count on me. I was pushing a cart all over the south side of Flash Gold Town just a couple of days ago. Whimper. It seemed like the sound of Anna, her mouth covered, crying. Ordinary people might not hear clearly from this distance, but Rain, whose physical condition had greatly improved recently, heard everything loud and clear. Crack! Crash! The noise grew louder, and occasionally the sound of ceramic pots falling and shattering could be heard. Hiss! The sound of linen tearing rang out. Rain stood at Anna's doorstep, feeling uneasy. He wanted to rush in to save her, but there were at least 2 thugs in Anna's room. If he acted rashly and failed, it could likely cost both him and Anna their lives. The cold night wind blew, gradually calming Rain down. Call the night watchman now? It would make too much noise, and there wasn't enough time. Besides, if the night watchman cornered them, the thugs might even kill Anna outright. Ask his father for help? Remembering his father's aged face and stooped figure, Rain shook his head, erasing the thought from his mind. Rain looked again at the carpentry hammer in his hand, sharp on one end and round on the other, used by his father to repair old furniture at home. Although it was somewhat old, it was well preserved. Rain turned the sharp end upward, hiding the hammer in his somewhat loose sleeve, and stepped forward to knock on the door. Knock, knock, knock. Anna, are you home? The room suddenly went quiet, and very faint voices could be heard. If Rain hadn't had exceptionally sharp hearing, he wouldn't have been able to make them out at all. Boss, I'll go check. It sounds like a kid. Should I just grab him? Scarface, get rid of him quickly. We've got to enjoy ourselves tonight. Don't make too much noise. Damn, this little girl might look thin, but she's pretty strong. Dull footsteps sounded in the room, as if the person inside first peered through the crack of the door to check the outside, confirming that it was just a young kid outside. Then creak, the door was opened. What caught Rain's eye was an unfamiliar face, without any scars, and he didn't know why the man was nicknamed Scarface. The curved yellow hair and the man's large, strong build gave Rain a vague sense of oppression. The man's hand was still on the hilt of his sword at his waist, his expression alert. Kid, what do you want? The man's fierce gaze took a closer look at the small, thin kid in front of him, and after confirming that he posed no threat, he relaxed somewhat and asked, Who are you? I'm here to see Anna. Isn't this Anna's house? Rain feigned a cringing demeanor, his expression terrified. I'm Anna's uncle. Anna and her aunt already left Flash Gold Town. This house belongs to me now. You don't need to come here anymore. Scarface forced a smile, carelessly concocted a lie, akin to a creepy uncle deceiving a child. How could Anna just leave so suddenly? She didn't even say goodbye to us. Rain muttered under his breath, his fists clenched, seemingly unwilling to accept that a budding romance was over before it had even begun. If it had been another time, Scarface might have teased the kid in front of him, but now he was too busy with more pressing matters to chat idly with the kid. All right, move along now. Digging into his groin, Scarface impatiently waved his hand, signaling for Rain to leave quickly. Okay, but Mr. Anna's uncle, could you please pass a small gift to Anna for me? Okay, give it here. Scarface paused but didn't think too much and reached out his hand. All he wanted now was to quickly get rid of this annoying kid. The small hammer slid from Rain's sleeve into his palm and was immediately gripped tightly. Meanwhile, Rain continued to speak calmly. I prepared for Anna. Just as Scarface was about to hear what Rain had prepared, bending slightly forward to take what was in Rain's hand, he suddenly couldn't see the kid's hands clearly. They were a blur. Suddenly, Scarface felt a pang of fear, his scalp tingling. A strong gust hit face on, the pressure blowing Scarface's curly yellow hair wildly about. A black spot appeared in Scarface's vision, and suddenly it enlarged, turning out to be the sharp end of the small hammer. Snap! The unsuspecting scarred face became motionless in an instant, a small pointed hammer nailed between his eyebrows, eyes wide open, a look of disbelief on his face. The next second, his entire body slowly fell forward. However, a pair of small but fierce hands suddenly appeared in front of the heavy body, steadily catching the still twitching frame of the scarred face. He laid it gently down beside the porch outside, without making a sound. Despite how stable Rain's hands appeared just now, at this moment, his heart was pounding violently. Just before launching the attack, he had put the remaining few attribute points into agility. For an ambush, Rain believed, speed was unbeatable. If fast enough, even a bird could break through the bulletproof glass of an airplane. Besides, Rain was wielding a carpenter's hammer. After removing the short sword and a delicate hand crossbow from the scarred face's waist, Rain peered through the window, aimed with the hand crossbow first, no movement. Inside, a man with a full black beard was in the process of taking off his pants. The exposed young girl had already captured over 90% of his attention. He hadn't noticed a slim shadow had already arrived behind him. Whoosh! A black crossbow arrow hit the large back of the bearded man, who immediately let out a piercing scream. Then the bearded man turned his head fiercely to look behind. But before he could see who had ambushed him, a strong gust of wind hit his face. Perch! A sharp short sword inserted into his throat. Bearded man, pants not yet pulled up, hands clasping his neck wound, eyes bulging, looked at the slender Rain in astonishment. Seemingly unwilling to fall, he stumbled backwards several times, slamming heavily against the wooden table before his body slowly collapsed, convulsing intermittently. Like a snake stripped of its spine, Rain had just used all his strength to make this overpowered striding thrust. Huff, huff! Rain gasped for air, his body soaked in sweat, standing still in place. If not for his chest heaving rapidly, one might mistake him for a statue. That last thrust seemed to have sapped all of Rain's energy. This was Rain's first kill in 2 lifetimes. At this moment, Rain only felt exhausted, a trace of confusion in his eyes. I killed someone? I killed someone. No, I didn't kill. I protected someone. After a long pause, the trace of confusion in Rain's eyes gradually dissipated, his clenched fists and eyes gradually brightening as if he realized something. Coming to such a transcendent world, even if I'm powerless to do much, I must at least survive well. To be able to protect myself, protect my family, and if I am capable, then protect those I want to protect. At that moment, Anna was shivering, covering her fair body with a tattered linen cloak, resembling a frightened little deer, timidly looking at Rain. When her tear-filled big eyes finally recognized her rescuer as the familiar Rain, she couldn't help but fling herself on him, embracing Rain tightly. Faced with the girl's warm body, Rain had absolutely no other thoughts. He gently patted Anna's back and said softly, "Don't be afraid, it's safe now. Anna, put on your clothes first. Just to be safe, I'll go check again." Suddenly, Anna let out a shy cry, only then realizing she was practically nude. Blushing, she immediately began to dress. It seemed that in an attempt to avoid Rain's gaze, she turned away, inadvertently presenting a beautiful curve to him. Suddenly, Rain froze. He sensed something amiss at the entrance of Anna's home. His mind screamed, "Not good." The intruder must have found the body at the door. Instantly, the romantic atmosphere that had filled the air vanished. "Hurry and get dressed," Rain urgently instructed as he pulled the sharp dagger from Blackbeard's throat, bringing with it a trail of blood. Rain turned immediately, positioning Anna behind him and facing the door with the tip of his sword. Anna began to hurriedly dress, noticing Rain's tense expression and understanding that danger might descend upon them again. It looked like he would have to waste skill points, just as Rain was considering adding them to the giant bear breathing technique. A figure Rain found familiar, yet loathsome, appeared in the doorway, followed by several fully armed elite night watchmen. "It's him!" Rain couldn't help but breathe a sigh of relief, and his entire body relaxed. Lord Hamilton, seeing the scene before him, was many times more astounded than Rain. He had finally received accurate information, having heard that a suspect in the children's disappearance case might be active in this area tonight. but he never expected to walk into such a scenario. Is this really the work of a child? Did he actually kill two outlaws listed on the wanted poster? Although the outlaw's strength was not deemed impressive, that was in comparison to himself. There was no way that two hardened criminals could be taken out by an ordinary youth. But the bloody reality informed Lord Hamilton, the town sheriff, that this lean young boy with the blood sword was indeed the culprit behind everything. If Rain's composure and talent when dealing with Drunkard Jack had impressed Lord Hamilton, sparking a sense of valuing talented individuals, then what Rain had done this time was truly shocking to Lord Hamilton. Clearly, Rain could not have simply charged in and fought the two outlaws head-on and killed them, especially since there was a frail girl here who could have been taken hostage by the criminals. In such a scenario, even if it were him coming to the rescue, he would find it somewhat troublesome because he had to consider the girl's safety. Under these circumstances, the fact that Rain managed to save the girl and kill the two outlaws proved his bravery and strategic mind. From this moment on, Lord Hamilton regarded Rain with newfound respect. In his heart, he no longer saw Rain as just a child, but as equivalent to one of his own elite night watchmen. Lord Hamilton's eyes flickered, examining Rain up and down several times, and he praised inwardly. After having killed and seen blood, Rain's entire spirit state is indeed different. If the previous Rain still had a hint of immaturity, like a rough gemstone, then the current Rain seemed like a gemstone that had just been polished on one side, beginning to shine with a light that demanded attention. "Did you do this?" Although he already knew the answer, Lord Hamilton asked once more. "Yes, sir. These two men broke in late at night with the intention of raping the young girl. I happened to be nearby, heard the noise, and killed them both. Sheriff, according to the Imperial Security Management Regulations, I shouldn't be breaking any law this time, should I?" After the killing, the completely transformed Rain spoke confidently. Just now, Rain thought it over. There was no need to hide anything from Lord Hamilton. He had interacted with Lord Hamilton before and knew that this experienced sheriff might view any concealment as a potential sign of guilt. Of course, you're not breaking the law. Rain, come, tell me how you managed to kill these two. Your strength is decent, but it would be nearly impossible for you to directly kill either of them in a head-on fight," Lord Hamilton said with a laugh as he walked toward Rain and waved his hand to the night watchman behind him. The elite night watchman in black leather armor entered and began to deal with the bodies on the ground. When they first saw the bodies, they were all stunned, clearly shocked as well. They glanced at Rain, and their eyes seemed to say that such a small kid could be so ruthlessly efficient. Soon, a capable night watchman came forward to report. Lord Hamilton, among the two deceased, one was wearing a skin mask confirmed to be Scarface, and the other was Blackbeard, both suspects in the children's disappearance case we've been pursuing. Additionally, these two men were also outlaws listed on the wanted poster. "Very well. Remove the body and clean up the traces in the room," Lord Hamilton nodded. "A human skin mask? A wanted poster? Scarface?" Upon hearing a string of keywords, Rain's heart was initially puzzled, but then he was startled, obviously frightened. He hadn't expected these two were wanted criminals. He was indeed lucky to have killed them both. It was partly due to luck. Scarface had been fooled by his frail appearance and acting skills, while the black-bearded man was driven by lust, focused entirely on Anna. If they had been slightly more cautious, under normal circumstances, he could have been turned over by either of them. But why does the name Scarface sound so familiar? That's right. It's that guy, worth a full 5 Imperial gold coins. Rain's eyes lit up, instantly remembering the notorious bandit known as Scarface and the bounty amount on the wanted poster. This means he could claim a substantial reward. And what about that black-bearded guy who called Scarface boss? Shouldn't he be worth even more? A wave of joy swept over Rain's heart. "Lord Hamilton, about the reward." "You want the reward? Come to the town's administration office tomorrow to find me." Lord Hamilton glanced at Rain with a smile that was not quite a smile, then turned and left. Rain felt that there was something hidden in the other man's eyes. Getting the reward tomorrow might not be so straightforward. The night watchman quickly carried away the bodies inside the room and at the door and dealt with the bloodstains crudely, but the room still reeked of a heavy scent of blood. After all, 2 people had just died here. Rain glanced at Anna, who was still shivering violently. Clearly, it was no longer suitable for her to stay here. He was quite troubled, but eventually thought that the only option was to let Anna stay at his home for the time being. "Anna, please don't mention what happened tonight to my parents or to Bohi, all right?" Rain crouched down, gently speaking to Anna, whose large eyes still held traces of fright. Anna didn't speak, but instinctively nodded her head. That was enough. Gently picking up the somewhat limp girl, Rain returned to his own house next door. Perhaps because Rain was guarding her side, the girl fell into a deep sleep in the latter half of the night, with tears glistening on her long eyelashes. Although the matter was resolved and he felt very exhausted, Rain couldn't fall asleep at once. The scene of the murder and the ferocious expressions of the 2 men as they lay dying replayed in his mind like a slideshow. Suddenly, Rain remembered that the system seemed to have sent a notification, but until now, he hadn't had the chance to check it. He opened it to see, "You have been through a battle, militiaman professional experience points, plus 121. You have been through a battle, militiaman professional experience points, plus 129. Your skill, basic swordsmanship, has improved, experience plus 34. Hiss. The militiaman profession level has risen that much?" Rain stared at his militiaman LV3, 328/500, on the panel, lost in thought. It seems that dangerous real combat is the best way to increase experience points. Although there was a young girl sleeping in the same room with him, the atmosphere couldn't be any further from being romantic or intimate. Looking at Anna, who was curled up and exuded an extreme lack of security even through her sleeping posture, Rain couldn't muster the slightest desire for this pitiful but tenacious and optimistic fragile girl. Talking about women? Clearly, Miss Clea, with her bouncy long legs and curvaceous figure, held more allure in Rain's heart. The next morning, under his parents' astonished gazes, Rain took Anna downstairs for breakfast, with only Bohi looking quite happy about it. "Father, Anna's home had some strangers knocking on the door yesterday, and considering the recent cases of missing children, I decided to bring Anna over. Let's have Anna stay with us for a while," Rain said, mixing truth with fiction. Old Rain glanced at Anna, who was eating shyly with her head down, and said with a smile, "All right, it looks like you're the lucky one, you scamp." "Rain, you have to be nice to that girl, Anna," his mother chimed in cheerfully, mincing no words. This made Anna blush deeply, her head nearly touching the table. "Mother, we're not in the kind of relationship you're imagining." Rain helplessly rubbed his forehead, saying, "Is that so? Then let me ask you, did you or did you not rest in the same room with her last night?" The mother, considering Anna was right beside them, didn't put it more directly. "That's because Anna was scared," Rain explained, powerless. At this point, old Rain interjected with a somewhat serious expression. "Rain, as a man, you must learn to take responsibility. Anna is a good girl, and you can't let her down." "Great. Now look what's happened." The misunderstanding couldn't be any bigger, but faced with his parents' advice, Rain could only listen obediently for now and find an opportunity to tell them the truth later. After breakfast, Rain almost fled to the town hall. After being announced by the guard at the door, a guard escorted Rain to Lord Hamilton's office. As the town's security officer, Lord Hamilton's status was second only to the governor. In some respects, given his control over the security forces and the Night Watcher's army, and from the perspective of maintaining regional stability, a region's security officer is an even more important role than the governor. "Knock, knock, knock," the guard knocked on the door. "Come in," a deep and resonant voice responded. The guard opened the door, and as Rain walked into the room, he saw Lord Hamilton, dressed in noble hunting attire, sitting behind a mahogany desk in the room, currently browsing through some documents. Lord Hamilton looked up, and without bothering with pleasantries, simply said, "Rain, take a seat first. I'm looking at a file here. Give me a moment." Rain nodded, pulled out a chair to sit down, and then began to look around. The office was bright and spacious, about 40 to 50 square meters in size, with several soft deerskin chairs and a coffee table in the central area, and bookshelves on the sides. The wall side of the office held the mahogany desk where Lord Hamilton was currently seated, Atop of it stacked a large number of parchment rolls that appeared to be various files and documents. Before Rain could finish surveying the room, Lord Hamilton put down the file he was examining, looked at Rain with a smile, and said, "Rain, your growth has exceeded my expectations. Are you interested in joining the Night Watchman squad to help me? See all these files? They are all unresolved cases, left by that fool Kuzma. Recently, I've been severely understaffed. In fact, the entire Meister County security situation is not looking good. The day before yesterday, in the southwest of Flashgold Town, at a Lean mine, 3 miners went missing. It is said that some unidentified creatures appeared inside the gold mine, and only bloodstains were found at the scene. Also, just yesterday, my guards reported finding traces of foul fin men around the source of water for our town, upstream from Glimmer Lake. Bear in mind these disgusting creatures heavily pollute the water. But right now, I don't have enough manpower to drive them away." Lord Hamilton pointed at the stack of parchment files on his mahogany desk, saying with a hint of anger, "Kuzma." Rain had heard this name before, mentioned by the faux rich kids during their idle chatter. He was the former security officer of Flashgold Town, and it seemed he left Lord Hamilton, the new appointee, with a multitude of messy issues to deal with. After some thought, Rain was not interested in Hamilton's invitation. Although night watchmen were also civil servants, officially organized under the Empire, there was no need. With Lady Clea's high regard for him, Rain could currently lay a solid foundation at the Habsburg estate, safe and sound. Seemingly guessing Rain's thoughts, Hamilton pulled out a gray pouch from the drawer and tossed it to Rain. "Thud! This is the bounty. 5 gold coins for Scarface, 10 for Blackbeard, totaling 15 imperial gold coins." "Thank you." Rain quickly caught the pouch, feeling exceptionally thrilled inside. He really hadn't expected that, even though he hadn't agreed to Hamilton's recruitment, the man would neither withhold nor pinch him over the bounty issue. This suddenly improved Rain's impression of Hamilton by quite a bit. However, this delight lasted only a few seconds before Hamilton's next words dissipated it like smoke. "Rain, I must remind you the Scarface you killed had no notable background, but Blackbeard, on the other hand, has a brother who is the boss of the Hyena Gang in Meister County, and he's very powerful. Just now, I was reviewing the dossier on Blackbeard," said Hamilton as he handed over the parchment roll to Rain. Rain took the sheepskin roll and immediately started reading through the dossier. Only, the more he read, the more solemn his expression became. The dossier showed that the Hyena Gang commanded hundreds of men and dealt in all kinds of dirty deeds, like theft, extortion of protection fees, and occasionally even more detestable acts like trafficking women and children. What was especially noted in the dossier was that the Hyena Gang's boss, nicknamed the Canine King Corps, had managed through some unknown means to tame a mutant hyena queen, as large as a boar, a few years ago. After raising a litter of pups, he equipped his corps members with them. Dependent on the hyena's combat abilities, which far exceeded those of ordinary dogs, the Hyena Gang quickly rose above other gangs in Meister County, and it was rumored they even made connections with certain nobility in the city. Faced with such an unscrupulous gang, Rain knew that even if he wasn't afraid, his family certainly couldn't afford to provoke them. Realizing this, Rain knew that he could only rely on the law enforcement officer before him to escape this predicament. That was also the purpose of Hamilton showing him the dossier. Hamilton continued speaking. "As I understand it, Blackbeard had a good relationship with his brother. He came out on his own this time to make some easy money. If his brother finds out his own sibling was killed by you, he will surely seek revenge." After a few seconds of silence, Rain, with a calm expression, looked at Hamilton and said, "Lord Hamilton, since you took the initiative to discuss this matter with me, you must have a way to resolve it." Appreciation gleamed in Hamilton's eyes. He himself, at Rain's age, probably couldn't have faced the situation as calmly as Rain did. Just as he was about to share his thoughts, suddenly, Hamilton's eyes brightened as he looked at Rain. He had just noticed a significant change in Rain, who was sitting across from him, compared to the last time they met. The events of the previous night had happened in the dark, and Hamilton had not noticed Rain's transformation due to the dim light. But today was daytime, and after scrutinizing Rain closely, Hamilton realized that his eyes were bright and spirited, his breathing steady and strong, bearing a great resemblance to how Hamilton himself had been when he first began learning the night breathing method. Hamilton couldn't help but blurt out, "Rain, have you practiced the night breathing method?" This sudden realization alarmed Rain. You can see that? However, Rain remained silent, maintaining a smile and calmly looking at Hamilton. To this, Hamilton didn't seem to mind. Instead, he appeared thoughtful and murmured to himself, "You have been training as a child servant on the Habsburg estate recently, which means that one of the knights within the Habsburgs must have taught you the breathing method. So, is this knight His Excellency, the estate steward Knight Lloyd, or the swordsmanship instructor Sir Perez?" Hamilton's gaze was piercing as he watched Rain, trying to discern something from his expression. This made Rain reevaluate Hamilton once again. He hadn't expected that this robust man before him would have such a delicate mind, nearly guessing the whole matter correctly, except for the last part about the person involved. "I'm sorry, Lord Hamilton, but I cannot reveal which lord taught me the breathing method, because I have promised to keep this secret." "Ah, good lad." However, the infighting among the heirs of the Count Hab's family is intense, and joining the estate might not necessarily be a good thing for you. The Count's two sons are fighting over power and profit, while his young daughter has an exceptional knightly talent, having become an official knight 2 years ago and deeply favored by the old Count. Hamilton waved his hand, obviously not minding whether Rain spoke or not, but instead revealed a significant secret to him. Infighting? Was it Lady Creia and her brothers, or brother against brother? No wonder earlier Lady Creia said that she wanted the fact that she taught me the breathing method kept a secret and mentioned that letting it out might not be good for me. Rain suddenly understood, and the eldest son of the Count Habs, Alonso, has dubious relations with the Wilderness Brotherhood. So, Rain, as a talented individual, joining the Night Watcher's army and serving the Empire would be your best choice. Hamilton slowly stood up, his bright eyes seriously fixed on Rain as he spoke. At that moment, he thought, since Rain has already gained the appreciation of the upper echelons of the Habsburg estate and has practiced breathing techniques, it wouldn't be quite appropriate for him to pretend to be an orphan to infiltrate the enemy as I had originally thought. Once you join the Night Watcher's army, I will have reason to move our already stretched forces and pay special attention to the area where your family lives, ensuring the safety of you and your family. Against the threats of the Hyena Gang, the Night Watchman will be your solid support. Hamilton's words were very enticing to Rain. The information that the other party had shared was high-end information that Rain had never been privy to, but he believed that Hamilton wouldn't deceive him on this matter. After all, some things are very easy to verify. Seeing that Rain was still hesitant, Hamilton continued to up the ante. "Rain, practicing the breathing method isn't cheap. You have completed 2 bounty tasks this time, earning more than 10 Imperial gold coins, which meets the minimum requirement to apply for an Imperial bounty hunter's license." Rain strongly agreed with Hamilton's words, as cultivating the breathing method was indeed expensive. If it weren't for Lady Creia providing him with berserker bear meat and the specialized secret medicine for the giant bear breathing technique, Black Kirin oil, his progress wouldn't be this rapid. However, what puzzled Rain was this bounty hunter's license. What was that all about? Shouldn't anyone be able to kill a wanted criminal and thus receive the bounty? "I apologize, Lord Hamilton. Does a bounty hunter still need a permit?" Rain asked, puzzled. "Ha, Rain, it seems I need to explain to you that if you are the offspring of nobility, of course, you don't need this bounty hunter permit. But for a person of common status who aspires to rely on bounties as a source of income, having this permit can be very convenient. Firstly, the bounty hunter's permit is universally recognized by the Empire. It allows you to carry weapons during the day or at night. Otherwise, according to the Empire's public security regulations, civilians can only keep their weapons at home, except under special circumstances. Moreover, if one day the total amount of your accumulated bounties reaches 100 gold coins or more, you can apply for intermediate bounty hunter certification, which grants you the privilege of riding a horse." This immediately left Rain stunned. Official recognition of all-day weapon carrying and horse riding? Were these privileges, normally reserved for the nobility, also available to bounty hunters? Indeed, In this world, military strength was the best pathway to class ascension. However, the Empire controls the number of bounty hunter slots quite strictly, but as it happens, I still have one recommendation slot available, Hamilton continued. Rain appeared pensive, naturally very tempted by the bounty hunter slot. Bearing arms, riding, and earning a considerable amount of gold coins were crucial elements on his transcendental path. Because even if he became an estate guard or even a night watchman, the basic salary would definitely not suffice for his training. However, since Hamilton had already mentioned the scarcity of these slots, it was clear there were no pies falling from the sky. Actually, some things were already quite clear between the lines. But the issue was that he had already accepted Lady Clea's kindness, and now to switch to joining the Night Watcher's army. After hesitating for a moment, Rain spoke up, "Lord Hamilton, I'm very grateful for your appreciation, but I have already promised someone else. I might become a follower of a certain noble in the future, so..." Before Rain could finish, Hamilton laughed heartily. "So that's what you were worried about? Rest assured, Rain, that is not a conflict at all. No matter whose follower you are, as long as he is a noble of the Empire, you will inevitably pledge allegiance to our great Empire Emperor of the Dragon Empire. For example, I am the safety officer of Flashgold Town, and at the same time a follower of Marquis Habsburg. My official position within the Empire's administration actually counts as a plus in front of Marquis Habsburg." Rain was suddenly astonished. So there was such a crafty move. Shouldn't it be, "The vassal's vassal is not my vassal"? However, Rain quickly realized that the Dragon Empire he was in was not like the medieval Western Europe of his previous life, where kingdoms were fragmented. Instead, the central authority was very strong, and naturally, everyone pledged allegiance to the Empire Emperor. After Hamilton's explanation, Rain quickly understood that it was very favorable for the Empire's nobles to have their followers become administrative officials in the kingdom's power departments. "By the way, Rain, you haven't undergone the ceremony of swearing allegiance as a follower yet, have you?" Hamilton inquired. "That? No." Rain thought, indeed, there had been no form of allegiance ceremony between himself and Lady Clea. Her exact words were that he could become her follower if he could step into the role of a formal knight. "Then you should improve your strength quickly. It would be better to swear allegiance as a guardian knight, rather than just as a follower," Hamilton said. "Lord Hamilton, is there a difference?" Rain asked, somewhat astonished. Although the amount of information he encountered today was somewhat overwhelming, it also made him feel that his visit was well worth it. A short conversation with Hamilton had enlightened him about many things that he had had no access to before. That was the barrier to information caused by differing social strata. Simply put, it's about having different levels of initiative. You can be the guardian knight for many people, but you can only be a follower to one. Hamilton thought for a moment, then explained, "Thank you, Lord Hamilton, for clearing my confusion. As for your gracious offer to join the Night Watchman, I accept. However, I am currently still in my page training period. Could I possibly join the Night Watchman after it ends?" Rain inquired. "Of course you can. The page training at Habsburg Manor is quite exceptional. It's just right for you to also learn archery." Hamilton seemed quite familiar with the page training, knowing that it included archery instruction. "But if there's something I need from you, Rain, you'll need to respond immediately," Hamilton added. "Of course, Lord Hamilton," Rain agreed. The meeting ended in a harmonious atmosphere. Rain carefully pocketed the gray pouch containing 15 Empire gold coins and said farewell to Hamilton, leaving the town hall of Flashgold Town. With the fortune now in his possession, Rain felt an extraordinary sense of joy. However, the threat of the hyena gang quickly spoiled his mood. Who would have thought that the leader of the hyena gang, Cor, was actually Blackbeard's brother? Strength? I must quickly increase my strength. However, previously it was a lack of money, but now with money in hand, Rain naturally thought of slightly improving his family's living conditions. As for the excuse, he had already worked it out. He would tell them that he received a reward of 2 Empire gold coins for providing Lord Hamilton, the new sheriff, with crucial clues in a child disappearance case. Then he would tell his family that Lord Hamilton had agreed to let him join the Night Watcher's army after his page training concludes. With this, his family wouldn't have to worry about his future, and the lifted burden would greatly improve the mood of the entire family, while also allowing himself to fully utilize the 2 gold coins. However, it was still early in the day, not yet 9 o'clock. Rain decided to continue his work at the blacksmith shop to gain more professional experience. Oh, speaking of the blacksmith shop, yes. Now that he had money, he could completely ask the blacksmith Boris to teach him real forging skills. The barrier before was that he couldn't afford it. No money. But now, all that was needed was to pay a hefty tuition fee. Of course, it was worth it. If he could greatly improve the efficiency of gaining experience, it would not only allow his blacksmith apprenticeship profession level to rise rapidly, but also lay a solid foundation for crafting his own equipment later. Thinking of this, Rain felt a surge of excitement. Thus, Rain turned left and right, rushing to the blacksmith shop. As soon as he entered the blacksmith shop, the continuous clang of hammering filled the air. The blacksmith apprentices were still busy at their work, and blacksmith Boris was in the midst of horseshoe forging, which immediately caught Rain's eye. This horseshoe forging combined with hoof trimming was precisely the complete set. Boris placed an iron bar of about half a meter into the fire to heat it. Once the middle turned white-hot, he took it out, brushed away the impurities on the surface, then immersed it in water for quenching. Quenching was a process Rain was familiar with from his previous life. It made the iron bar much harder. Soon, through repeated hammering and heating, the iron bar gradually took on the shape of a crescent moon. Seeing Rain come in, Drews, who was working the bellows, greeted him eagerly. "Rain, you're here to help again today. Want to continue with the bellows?" Rain smiled and said, "Drews, I'm sorry, but I might not be able to work the bellows today." Under Drew's astonished gaze, Rain walked up to Boris and pointed to the horseshoe in the making. "Uncle Boris, I want to learn this. How much is the tuition fee?" The blacksmith Boris looked at Rain in surprise and said, "Rain, you have money? You are not my official apprentice. If you just want to learn horseshoe forging, the tuition is not cheap. Even though you have help for free, I can't give you a discount on how much I should charge." After listening to this, Rain couldn't help but inwardly scoff. The rumors were true. Blacksmith Boris was quite skilled, but exceedingly stingy. "Of course, Uncle Boris. How much is the tuition to learn horseshoe forging?" "To teach you horseshoe forging for a month, 12 silver coins. If you can't learn it when the time is up, there's nothing I could do about it, but the tuition is non-refundable." Hiss. Hearing this price, the surrounding apprentices exchanged glances, as if to say that this time Rain was likely to suffer a self-inflicted disappointment. After all, this price was indeed too high for most people, let alone Rain, who did not come from a well-off family. Rain was also speechless. This price, just for 1 month, and without guarantee of success. You should know that in Flashgold Town, the monthly income of an ordinary adult male is only about 2 to 3 silver coins. The currency system of the Dragon Empire was a bit similar to Rain's previous life in England. 1 gold coin of the Empire could be exchanged for 12 silver coins, 1 silver coin for 20 shillings, 1 shilling for 12 pennies, and 1 penny had the purchasing power of about 1 pound of rye bread. But he still had to learn. Rain feigned an expression of great distress and pulled out a gold coin from his embrace, handing it to the slightly surprised Boris. "Deal. Uncle Boris. This time, my family signed me up for the Habsburg Manor's page training, aiming for a blacksmith apprentice, so they specifically prepared some money for me to learn the essential blacksmith skills." Rain half-truthfully explained, accounting for the source of the money. "It seems old Rain has high hopes for you. Work hard, lad. Don't end up like my good-for-nothing boy, wandering off to county town every day, now completely untraceable." Boris suddenly became emotional, patting Rain on the shoulder with a sigh. This made Rain change his opinion of Boris a bit, realizing that even a stingy man like Boris had the heart of a father wanting his son to succeed. "Come on, Rain, give me a hand here." With that, blacksmith Boris handed Rain a heavy hammer. Just as Rain grasped the hammer handed to him by Boris, suddenly, a string of system notifications appeared, causing Rain to be slightly startled. Ding! Host has come into contact with the Blacksmith Apprentice Promotion Medium, Blacksmith's Hammer. Preconditions for promotion to Blacksmith. 1. Blacksmith Apprentice LV3 at full level. 2. Strength of at least 6 points. Constitution of at least 6 points. 3. Forge 10 qualifying blacksmith products. Current conditions do not meet the requirements. Promotion to blacksmith failed. Rain was immediately thrilled. So this was the key to advancing from blacksmith apprentice to blacksmith. Rain, what are you standing around for? Oh, right away. Uncle Boris. Quickly coming back to his senses, Rain immediately began to assist with the forging. Being new to the craft, Rain only needed to complete one step, indenting a groove in the U-shaped iron bar. After the iron bar for the horseshoe was shaped into a crescent, the following steps required 2 people to work together. Blacksmith Boris clamped the iron bar with his left hand and heated it up again while holding a sharp tool in his right hand, shaped like an axe, moving it swiftly over the iron bar. Meanwhile, Rain swung the hammer forcefully in rhythm, striking the wider top of the axe, whose blade was relatively narrow, leaving a slender groove in the hot iron bar under the heavy blow. This groove in the horseshoe was to accommodate the soil on the ground to enhance the grip of the horseshoe. Although Boris charged extortionately, his teaching attitude was commendable. He guided Rain on the rhythm of force application while explaining to Rain the complete experience of horseshoe forging. This benefited Rain a great deal. Before long, the system prompt appeared again. You have engaged in horseshoe forging, and your insight has improved. You have realized a new skill. Horseshoe forging. Your skill in horseshoe forging has improved. Experience +2. You focused on forging horseshoes. Blacksmith Apprentice Professional Experience points +5. Clearly, after participating in the horseshoe forging, the professional experience points of the Blacksmith Apprentice sword, far surpassing previous bellows pulling work. This might be the essence of pay to win. At the same time, one after another, qualified horseshoes were forged by Rain and Boris. But unfortunately, perhaps because most of this part of the work was completed by Boris, the system did not recognize these horseshoes as being forged by Rain. Naturally, this did not meet the condition of forging 10 qualified blacksmith products. This left Rain slightly disappointed. He still wanted to advance to a blacksmith as quickly as possible. However, apart from horseshoes, what else could be learned quickly? Ah, there it is. That would be the nails used for horseshoes. These items are relatively simple to make, and logically, the horseshoe nail should also count as blacksmith products. Rain remembered a saying from his past life. For one of a nail, the shoe was lost. For one of a shoe, the horse was lost. For one of a horse, the rider was lost. For one of a rider, the battle was lost. For one of a battle, the kingdom was lost. And all for the want of a horseshoe nail. So, even though the horseshoe nail was small, it was equally important. Seizing the moment during a break, Rain asked Boris if he could start learning the skill of forging horseshoe nails first. Although Boris found it strange that Rain was insistent on learning how to forge horseshoe nails before the more important horseshoes, after giving it a bit of thought, he quickly agreed. The reason was that the forging of horseshoe nails was also part of the lesson fee paid by Rain. After all, once the horseshoes were made, they needed to be used in conjunction with horseshoe nails, and the sequence didn't matter. Rain managed to contain his small surge of excitement and began to seriously forge horseshoe nails following Boris's instructions. At first, the horseshoe nails that Rain produced were all bent and unusable, but slowly, the quality began to improve. Indeed, as Rain had previously guessed, the system recognized the horseshoe nails as falling within the category of any qualified blacksmith product. With that realization, Rain was overjoyed, and like he had been injected with chicken blood, he swung the hammer vigorously, dripping with sweat as he forged the horseshoe nails. Boris, on the other hand, looked at the enthusiastic Rain working on the horseshoe nails, shook his head, and said, "What a strange habit." Finally, before lunch, Rain achieved both of his goals. Any qualified blacksmith product, 10 out of 10, achieved. Blacksmith Apprentice LV3, 500 max level, achieved. His core skills have emerged. Rain was both shocked and delighted. This promotion truly represents a qualitative leap. After informing Blacksmith Boris that he would go home for lunch and return in the afternoon, Rain swiftly left the blacksmith shop, went around the corner of the street, and immediately found a secluded corner to carefully examine his attribute panel. The original blacksmith apprentice panel had disappeared, replaced with the blacksmith panel. At the same time, two brand new skill icons at the bottom of the panel flickered slightly, and from their size, the icons for the core skills seemed to be almost twice as large as those for ordinary skills. Rain first focused his attention on an icon resembling Popeye flexing his biceps, and beneath it there was a line of text. Core skill, Blacksmith Strength LV1, active. Blacksmith Strength LV1, active effects. Upon skill activation, your strength will slightly increase. Note, the skill effect will proportionally increase based on the host's own strength, and its duration is proportional to the host's constitution and spiritual power. Upon reading this, Rain quickly fell into deep thought. The additional 2 points of strength gained after the upgrade to Blacksmith allowed Rain's strength attribute to surpass his previously highest spirit attribute, becoming his strongest attribute. It's worth noting that 9 points of strength already greatly exceeded that of an average adult male, and it was probably slightly superior even compared to the elite members of Lord Hamilton's Night Watchers army. Feeling the surge of strength throughout his body brought Rain a burst of joy. Before the upgrade, even if the profession levels of Blacksmith Apprentice or Militia were to increase, each level would only grant 1 attribute point. But now, just by upgrading, Rain had gained 2 additional points of strength. The increase was significant. At the same time, with this active skill, Blacksmith Strength, which could further enhance strength, Rain was very eager to try it out immediately, but there was nothing suitable around, and making too much noise would draw unnecessary attention. After a brief thought, Rain decided to head home, neglecting to even stop for groceries, remembering that there were some scattered large rocks along the way home that he could try his hand at. Swiftly, while walking home, Rain, looking around, quickly spotted a nearly half-human-high piece of stone not far off the roadside. So, after again making sure no one was around, Rain, eager to approached the stone. Lift! With 9 points of strength, Rain, who originally would not have been able to move the heavy rock, now lifted it, although he turned red and found it strenuous. However, he now managed to stably hold it, lifting it a few feet off the ground. However, to advance further and lift the 2 to 300-pound rock over his head, 9 points of strength still fell a bit short. Thus, Rain focused his attention on Blacksmith Strength NOVL B/JNN. As the skill was activated, suddenly, a warm surge pumped from his heart, accelerating Rain's blood flow, causing his veins to bulge and the muscles in his arms and shoulders to protrude. Rain then forcibly lifted the heavy rock above his head and threw it 4 to 5 meters away. After throwing the rock, a delightful sensation instantly surged through his heart. This was the confidence and exhilaration that great strength brings to a man. Then, Rain glanced once more at his attribute panel, only to see strength. 9 plus 1.8, and the plus 1.8 in brackets was clearly the effect of Blacksmith Strength, though the duration was not displayed. Rain stood quietly in place, feeling the changes in his body. About half a minute later, Rain felt the warmth inside him gradually dissipate. It seemed that the Blacksmith Strength, an active skill, could only last for about half a minute at present. But this had already made Rain more than overjoyed. Without a doubt, Blacksmith Strength was a skill that could serve as a trump card. Glancing at the sun hanging slightly to the west, Rain muttered to himself, "Oh no, I almost missed lunchtime." So, without giving another glance at the other core skill, Hammer Mastery, Rain quickly ran home. As soon as he entered the house, his mother greeted him. "Why are you so late? Did you go to the blacksmith shop again?" Seeing Rain come back drenched in sweat, his mother asked with a heartache. Rain nodded and took the towel his mother offered, wiping the sweat beads off his forehead. Just as Rain was gathering his words, planning to discuss with his parents that he had agreed to join the Night Watchers army at Lord Hamilton's behest, his usually reticent father suddenly spoke. "Rain, come here for a minute." Rain was slightly surprised, but followed his father into the room. He saw his father take an object wrapped in gray linen cloth from the old bedside table. As he slowly unwrapped it, 2 slightly worn imperial gold coins and more than 10 silver coins came into view. Old Rain hesitated for a moment, then picked up the only 2 imperial gold coins and handed them to Rain. Rain, lately whenever you're free, you run off to that miser Boris's blacksmith shop. But it's useless unless you can pay the apprentice fee. You can't possibly move that heartless man with sincerity. Father, Rain started to say something, but was interrupted by a wave of Old Rain's hand. Listen to me first, your mother and I have discussed this. These 2 gold coins should be enough for you to learn 1 or 2 forging skills from Boris, which might give you some advantage in the Manor Blacksmith Apprenticeship Assessment. The little money left, we are keeping it home for you and Bohi to buy some white bread, meat, and eggs. We can't give you more. You are both still growing, and your nutrition needs to keep up. Looking at his father's face, tanned by the sun, Rain was speechlessly moved. Firmly pushing back the gold coins his father had handed him, Rain raised his head and said, Father, you and Mother need not worry about my future anymore. I provided crucial leads on child disappearances to the newly appointed sheriff, Lord Hamilton. Lord Hamilton has promised that after my pageboy training ends, I can join the Night Watcher's army. Having said this, amidst Old Rain's astonished gaze, Rain also pulled out 2 brand-new imperial gold coins from his own pocket and handed them over. Father, these 2 gold coins are a reward from Lord Hamilton. Keep this money, and we can eat better at home every day. Clearly, Rain wasn't reluctant to give all the gold coins to his family, but giving more would have been inexplicable with just the explanation of providing a lead. Bang! Rain, is this true? His mother, who had been listening at the door, could no longer contain her surprise and burst through the door, hurrying inside. Of course, look, if you and Father really don't believe me, you can go to the town hall and ask Lord Hamilton directly. Rain shrugged, a smile on his face. May the goddess of fortune bless us. His mother cried tears of joy, praying continuously while hurriedly wiping away her tears. At lunchtime, Old Rain unusually splurged on several bottles of rye beer and seemed determined to have a few drinks with Rain. Leaving Anna and Bo, he exchanging puzzled looks. Anna sensed something, but felt too embarrassed to ask Rain directly. Rain, from now on, you're a man. Hick about you and Anna. Hick, it's up to you, son. I support you. Hick, Father, this. Seeing his father, who had drunk too much, Rain felt a wave of embarrassment and quickly exchanged glances with Anna, who then swiftly diverted her eyes. The next second, like a frightened rabbit, Anna immediately lowered her head, a blush spreading across her fair cheeks. After the meal, Anna spoke to Rain with a slightly shy expression. Rain, can you come to the room for a moment? Having spent a day at Rain's home, Anna still felt somewhat uneasy. Not because Rain's family treated her badly, but because they were too enthusiastic. The two made their way to a room on the second floor. Rain, I want to go back to my own home, Anna said, lowering her head with her fingers interlocked tightly, clutching the hem of her skirt. For some reason, although Rain was her savior, every time she faced him, Anna always felt a bit nervous, and her heart would pound fiercely. That's probably not a good idea. Rain shook his head and declined. Why not? Anna looked at Rain with a puzzled and surprised expression, her mind a tangle of confusion. This response was not what she had expected at all. Could it be that, while the girl's thoughts fluttered, Rain spoke with a serious expression? According to Lord Hamilton, the constable, the Blackbeard I killed last time, is the younger brother of the leader of the county town hyena gang. I'm worried that they might send someone to investigate his brother's disappearance. So, it's better for you to stay here for the time being and not go back. Anna's face immediately turned pale. Don't worry, I'll be joining the Night Watcher's army soon. To calm Anna's shocked emotions, Rain shared with her a part of his conversation in Lord Hamilton's office. After his explanation, Anna felt somewhat relieved. Her complexion also stabilized considerably, and she nodded. Then all right then, I'll help out with whatever I can, she agreed. Rain waved his hand and said, if you have time, you could keep Bohi company. No one is at home usually, and I'm sure she'd be very happy to have your company. Of course, that's no problem. Bohi is very cute and well-behaved, Anna's eyes narrowed happily into crescents as she spoke of Bohi. That's enough then. Don't worry. Things will get better and better. Anna looked at Rain's determined expression, nodded, and gave a firm Although Rain was only a few months older than her, he inexplicably gave her a sense of reliability. She believed in what Rain said. In the afternoon, on his way to the blacksmith shop, Rain checked another core skill of the blacksmith trade, hammer mastery, which was represented by the icon of a diagonally placed flathead hammer. Hammer mastery LV1, passive slight increase in damage when the host uses any hammer-type weapons. Rain frowned as he read. Having always practiced swordsmanship, was he now expected to learn some sort of hammer-based combat skill? It seemed that this skill wasn't likely to immediately enhance his combat abilities. However, Rain was already quite satisfied with his promotion to blacksmith, both with the increase in strength and the acquisition of new active skills, especially blacksmith strength. Rain flipped to the first page of his status panel. Name: Rain Carlin. Profession: Blacksmith LV1, 1 out of 100, / Militiaman LV3, 328 for 500. Constitution: 6. Strength: 9. Agility: 8. Spirit: 8N/O/Vel/B/in.C//OM. Remaining attribute points: 0. Remaining skill points: 1. Beneath both core skills, there was a mention of a LV, suggesting that they were likely upgradable. But Rain noticed that there wasn't an experience bar in brackets beneath them, which could very well mean that core skills couldn't be upgraded through practice, but only through the use of skill points. This caused a slight frown on Rain's brow, because this meant that the already scarce skill points were now even more precious. Rain looked at the remaining 1 skill point on the panel, hesitating again and again, but still not assigning it. The giant bear breathing technique is currently at the 2nd level, and progress isn't too slow, but once it reaches the 3rd level, it will take much longer. I was thinking of waiting until I reach the 3rd level of the giant bear breathing technique before using the points to jump directly to level 4. The advancement of breathing techniques can bring an all-around improvement to physical condition, making them highly cost-effective. But now a core skill has emerged that cannot be improved through practice alone, which is quite troublesome, Rain mused as he walked towards the blacksmith shop. Moreover, given this trend, the shortage of skill points is likely to grow more significant over time. As for a solution, either I find a way to trigger more professions, but right now, this seems highly uncertain. I had hoped that a week of training with the Greyhound would lead to a new profession panel like a dog trainer or beast tamer, but it never materialized. So it seems the only thing I can control right now is to continue advancing the profession levels of a blacksmith or militiaman. After reflecting for a while, Rain's goal became clear. Once he returned to the blacksmith shop, his enthusiasm reignited, and he continued to learn horseshoe forging from blacksmith Boris. After an afternoon of continued learning, Rain became increasingly adept at forging horseshoes, and blacksmith Boris found less and less to do. This couldn't help but impress Boris, who hadn't expected the kid to have such a talent for blacksmithing. Regrettably, after an afternoon of hard work, his blacksmith profession level had only risen by 5 points, now at blacksmith LV1, 5 out of 100. It seemed that after becoming a blacksmith, the experience provided by some of the forging outputs was becoming less and less. As the sky grew dark, Rain left the blacksmith shop and headed towards Habsburg Manor. After returning to the Page dormitory, Rain chatted briefly with George before drifting off to sleep. The next morning, as a new week of training began, the Pages were to undergo archery training, still overseen by Humbert, the Manor's veteran guard. As part of the Habsburg Manor Guard's assessment, both swordsmanship and archery were mandatory skills to be learned. The group of Pages arrived at the northwest corner of the outer yard of Habsburg Manor, where 10 neatly aligned targets were set up and a variety of training bows of different sizes and draw weights were laid out in the adjacent shelter. Rain took a careful look and noticed that there were short bows, war bows, and long bows over 1.5 meters in length. Today, we will be practicing archery. Everyone, go to the shelter and pick a bow that suits your strength and an arrow quiver, Instructor Humbert commanded, with his hands clasped behind his back and a stern tone. As soon as Instructor Humbert finished speaking, the pages swarmed the shelter to pick their bows. Because of limited strength, most of the pages chose short bows. But quite a few among the pseudo-nobles were tall and strong and opted for regular-sized war bows. Rain also selected a war bow, but he deliberately chose one that was slightly less powerful, about a medium draw weight. Otherwise, with his actual strength, Rain could have chosen the most potent war bow available here. Thick Eyebrows glanced over at Rain and saw that he had picked a bow with a higher draw weight than his own. He couldn't help but snort coldly, thinking to himself, that shouldn't be right. Rain is supposed to be weaker than me. However, he didn't verbally mock Rain and instead turned away with a darkened expression. It seemed he remembered that very unpleasant brawl. Remembering the fight, Thick Eyebrows felt his stomach churn a bit and cursed inwardly. Damn it. What the hell is Jack up to? It's been a week, and now the guy's gone missing. But it's likely that the drunk Jack has gone off to cause more trouble. Seeing as we've had a similar incident before, that bastard spent half a month carousing at a widow's expense after earning some money, only to be kicked out when he was broke. Thick Eyebrows shook his head in frustration, regretting having paid Jack in full ahead of time that day. That good-for-nothing was just too unreliable. Rain was naturally very eager about archery, but currently, he couldn't afford to allocate his precious skill points into it. So after a whole day of sincere effort, his progress in archery was modest, adding only a basic archery LV1, 8 out of 100 badge to his existing militia panel. After all, Rome wasn't built in a day, and accuracy in archery required extensive practice over time. This caused a flicker of disappointment in Humbert's eyes, who had held high hopes for Rain. However, this turn of events delighted Thick Eyebrows, who had been quite anxious initially. Since archery was one of the mandatory parts of the guard's assessment, Rain's poor archery skills would significantly drag down his overall score during the evaluation. In contrast, his second-ranked swordsmanship combined with top-ranked archery would ensure his total score surpassed Rain's. He had it in the bag. At dusk, after finishing a day of archery training, Rain arrived at Lady Krea's study. After practicing the giant bear breathing technique for a while, Rain followed Lady Krea to a separate training room located behind the door at the back of the study n/o/vel/b//and.c//om. The room spanned a little over 200 square meters with various long swords, dual-handed great swords, shields, and even bows and arrows placed on both sides. Opposite them stood 3 fixed targets and wooden dummies for training. Clang! Upon their swords clashing, Lady Krea's chestnut ponytail flicked, and she almost stepped back, which surprised her. Rain, has your strength really increased this much? She asked. Rain then realized that since he had changed his class to Blacksmith, his strength had soared to 9 points. He hadn't fully controlled his power in the heat of sparring, which was why there was an evident increase in his sword's force. Lady Krea, with her keen perception, detected this immediately. Haha, maybe it's because the giant bear breathing technique is particularly suited for me, Rain said as he touched his nose, quickly inventing an explanation. Lady Krea's large, brown-gray eyes scrutinized Rain skeptically, and she murmured softly, "But you've only reached the second form of the giant bear breathing technique. Could it really have improved your physical constitution this much?" Although the giant bear breathing technique focuses on enhancing a person's strength and constitution, this is the first time I've seen someone just starting out and already experiencing such a significant improvement in their physical condition. Lady Krea furrowed her brows slightly, and after pondering for a moment without coming to any more plausible conclusion, she shook her head slightly and said, "It seems that's the only explanation for now. The giant bear breathing technique must be particularly compatible with your constitution. In the entire empire, cases like yours are extremely rare, but not unheard of. It's just that in Meister County, you may be the first. A perfect match, my foot." Only Rain knew the real situation. However, Lady Krea's piercing gaze that seemed to see into his heart had unsettled Rain just now. It seemed that next time, he needed to be more careful about this issue. However, this is actually a good thing. I had set aside some scrolls for you, but now it seems I can teach you the swordsmanship that accompanies the giant bear breathing technique. the giant bear sword technique. Lady Krea's next words startled Rain. This turnaround was somewhat sudden. Giant bear sword technique? Rain's heart leapt with joy. Just by the name alone, he knew that the swordsmanship Lady Krea was about to teach him would be far superior to the basic sword techniques. Lady Krea had not anticipated that Rain would bring her another surprise. So far, Rain's constitution and the giant bear breathing technique seemed an extremely good fit, and just a few days of practice had considerably enhanced Rain's strength, a rare phenomenon. Now, she felt much more confident that Rain would enter the transcendent stage and become an official knight before turning 18. Otherwise, with her knightly talent, after another 3 years, she would probably at least have advanced to a senior knight. By then, a follower who was merely at the level of a third-class knight attendant would be too weak and meaningless. It wasn't that her standards were too high, but to be her follower, one needed to possess a rate of progress close to hers, at least not too far behind. Lady Krea, looking at Rain with admiration, continued in a clear voice. The giant bear sword technique originates from imitating the claw strikes of the bear-like, transcendent creatures, powerful and weighty, emphasizing strength and momentum. Therefore, the giant bear sword technique is used in conjunction with heavy dual-handed greatswords, which sets a relatively high strength requirement for the user. A regular person, however strong, would not be able to swing a dual-handed greatsword weighing tens of pounds if they haven't practiced any breathing techniques. And even those few with exceptional talent would still have many flaws. Upon hearing this, Rain strongly agreed. If his strength hadn't reached 9 points, he probably wouldn't even qualify to learn the giant bear sword technique. He would have to wait until his giant bear breathing technique reached the 5th or 6th form, and his physical constitution had greatly improved before he would be qualified to practice the giant bear sword technique. That must also be why Lady Clea left the sword technique scroll behind, but did not teach it to him. After all, to learn the giant bear sword technique, you must at least be able to swing a dual-handed greatsword. Now, your strength should be enough to wield the lightest 36-pound dual-handed greatsword, Clea said, pointing to the sword rack beside her. Rain's gaze shifted to it, and saw that these dual-handed greatswords all had cross-shaped hilts, with long blades at least 1 meter and 20 centimeters in length. Moving forward, Rain selected the lightest dual-handed greatsword, but even the lightest one was much heavier than a longsword. With his strength at 9 points, it was not so smooth to swing, but as Clea said, he could barely use it now. At that moment, Clea casually picked up a dual-handed greatsword and began demonstrating. The giant bear sword technique comprises 5 forms, the first one being Furious Slash. Watch closely, Rain, Clea said with a stern expression, her entire body moving as quick as a darting rabbit. Swoosh! Propelled by her elastic legs, she moved like a swift leopardess, stepping out in one big stride, already several meters away, as she swung the dual-handed greatsword in a powerful chopping motion from above toward the wooden dummy made of ironwood. With a crack, as the silvery gleam of the sword flashed by, the ironwood post in front of Clea instantly split into 2. Hiss! Such power! Rain was certain that Clea had not given her full strength. She was just demonstrating for him. And yet the lethality was already so terrifying. He was starting to understand what Hamilton meant when he said she was quite talented. If you understand, try it yourself. Okay, Lady Clea. Rain also followed Clea's demonstration, quickly stepping forward and harshly chopping down the dual-handed greatsword on the ironwood post from above. Thump! A dull sound echoed, and Rain looked embarrassingly at the scene before him. His dual-handed greatsword had penetrated about 3 inches into the ironwood post before getting stuck. You little dummy! Seeing Rain's awkward situation, Clea couldn't help but burst into laughter. Rain smiled sheepishly, but this was the first time he had seen Clea shaking with laughter. Normally, Clea maintained an elegant, noble demeanor in front of others, and her style in combat was even more valiant and commanding. Rain, when you were exerting your force, your wrist was too tense. The movement for Furious Slash was too stiff. Remember, only at the instant of the chop you must grip tightly and release a trembling burst of force through your wrist. That way, Your sword won't get stuck in the post, Clea said with a playful smile. Especially when she got to the last part, Clea glanced again at Rain's great sword stuck in the dummy, trying to contain her laughter. Rain suddenly realized he hadn't expected that using a dual-handed great sword would be so different from a longsword. Under Clea's guidance, after several practices, a system prompt appeared. You have trained in giant bear sword technique, improving related comprehension. You have comprehended a new skill, giant bear sword technique. Your skill giant bear sword technique has been enhanced. Experience +1. The giant bear sword technique LV1, 1 of 100, appeared on the militia panel, and its icon was amusingly a bear wielding a greatsword. While Rain was practicing the giant bear sword technique in the castle, in a room on the second floor of the castle, a burly middle-aged man clad in gray heavy armor was respectfully reporting Rain's situation to a noble young man with a sinister air about him. Young master. After investigation, the young man that Lady Crea has taken a liking to is named Rain, a 14-year-old farmer's son, who is said to have considerable talent in swordsmanship. These past few days, Lady Crea has been giving him extra training, seemingly placing high value on his swordsmanship talent. The noble youth, with a somewhat pale complexion, furrowed his brows and rhythmically tapped his fingers on the smooth wooden armrest of his chair. After a moment of thought, he spoke. Rulse, by the look of it, Crea has taken a fancy to the swordsmanship talent of that lowborn and intends to cultivate him as her own direct line, doesn't she? Yes, young Master Dennis, responded the attendant named Rulse, bowing slightly. If Rain had been present, he would have recognized the youth sitting on the deer leather chair as the expressionless noble young master he had encountered once before. Then, let this matter be leaked to Alonso, the eldest son of the Habs family. He has a far greater interest in his sister Crea than we do. If he learns that his sister has begun to cultivate a direct line, he will surely be more agitated than we are. At this point, the noble youth named Dennis revealed a sly smile on his face. As for this lowborn named Rain, his fate will be quite interesting to watch. Ha ha. Dennis couldn't help but burst into laughter. Young Master Dennis, your wisdom is truly rare in this world. This way, we can achieve your goal without having to lift a finger, Rulse said with a smile, complimenting him at just the right time. Originally, Rulse thought his young master might order him to discreetly deal with the farmer's son, but that would risk directly offending Lady Crea. However, he hadn't expected his young master to come up with such a scheme as using another's hand to kill so quickly, one that could achieve their goal without bringing trouble upon themselves. The master will be relieved. Rulse served Baron Norman, having followed him in many battles during his younger years. Combining his robust personal strength with a bit of luck, he had survived and his skill had reached the level of a nearly commissioned knight. A nearly commissioned knight is all set, just one step away from becoming a formal third-tier knight attendant. However, due to Rulse's advanced age, the possibility of using an extremely precious magic potion to advance and break through to Transcendent was less than 10%. Therefore, the final arrangement had been for Baron Norman to appoint him as the chief guard of his eldest legitimate son, Dennis. By the way, young Master Dennis, the day before yesterday, Baron Norman asked if there's any chance you could establish a romantic relationship with Lady Crea before she leaves Meister County. Although he felt that asking this question might displease the young master before him, Rulse had no choice as Baron Norman was awaiting a reply, so he had to pluck up the courage to ask. When Dennis heard his loyal subordinate ask this question, his face immediately darkened. It was his sore spot. He had earnestly pursued Crea, only to receive the response, "If you can defeat me in a spar, I'll consider it." Do you want to try? He would never forget that scene. He lasted only 3 seconds before embarrassingly admitting defeat. N/O/vel/B/C/OM. Latterly, he devised various strategies hoping to win Crea over with sincerity and perseverance, following her to Habsburg Manor for knight attendant training. But so much time had passed, and he had made no progress, let alone held Crea's hand, with establishing a romantic relationship seeming even further away. Resorting to underhanded methods? In terms of status, Crea is the daughter of Count Habs. In terms of strength, she became an official knight at 15 and is considered Meister County's top talent. Moreover, she is about to leave to enroll at the Dragon Imperial Royal Academy. Having just become a third-tier knight attendant, if he dared to use any foul tricks, he would surely be squarely dealt with by Kreia. Recalling past beatings that left him with a swollen nose and bruised face, Dennis involuntarily shivered. I wanted to lash out at Rolls, but after careful thought, I realized this was what my father wanted to inquire about. Feeling somewhat deflated, Dennis said, "Rolls, reply to my father that I am trying hard." "Go, call Tina over," Dennis demanded, suppressing the fury in his heart, and waved his hand dismissively. "Yes, young master." Rolls bowed respectfully and left the room. Soon after, a slim girl with features somewhat resembling Kleia's walked timidly into the room and said fearfully, "Young Master Dennis, close the door and come here," Dennis said, looking at the girl's fearful expression with disgust. Although this girl named Tina had some resemblance to Kleia in her looks, the difference in her temperament and figure was like night and day. But as a substitute, the bar couldn't be set too high. After all, if it were, none could be found. This girl was, in fact, the daughter of a tailor whom Rolls had scoured the Meister County for and finally stumbled upon with great difficulty. Whenever Dennis was filled with rage with nowhere to vent, he would find her and lash out fiercely. "Lift your head, Tina, and look at me. Imagine yourself as a noble from a prestigious family, unyielding and dignified." "Young Master Dennis, I can't." "Useless thing. Then get down on your front." Instantly, blood rushing to his head with rage, Dennis grabbed the poor maidservant, turned her back to him, and pressed her harshly onto the desk. After a sound of fabric tearing, the maidservant's pleas for mercy followed. "It hurts, young master." Smack! "Shut up. Don't make a sound." The piteous maidservant could only stuff a roll of parchment into her mouth, while tears streamed down like pearls. At first, when her father sold her to young Master Dennis, she was secretly thrilled, thinking she would become the personal maid to a noble young master and step into a wonderful life. But her mood quickly plunged from heaven to hell. On the first day, Dennis treated her brutally, and she soon realized she was nothing but a stand-in for the high-born and beautiful Lady Kreia in her own young master's heart. No, even saying she was a stand-in was overestimating her worth. She was merely an object for her young master to vent his beastly lusts upon. For 3 consecutive days, after bout training at the estate, Rain would head to the castle to learn the giant bear sword technique with Kleia. Recently, the teachings felt a bit rushed to Rain. Within a span of 3 days, Kleia had successively taught him Furious Slash, Leap Slash, and Smooth Cleaving Slash. At present, he had only just begun to grasp the first technique, Furious Slash. He could only say he understood the method of channeling and exerting force for Leap Slash and Smooth Cleaving Slash, but using them was still very clumsy. This point would have to be improved upon with continuous practice and refinement. That is, assuming he wouldn't use skill points. By now, Rain had begun to guess that perhaps this was because the time of Kleia's departure was drawing nearer. "Rain, today I'll teach you a defensive stance, which is the only defensive move in the giant bear sword technique. Come, attack me." Kleia raised her fine eyebrows, signaling Rain to advance on her. Rain nodded. The next second, he swiftly stepped forward, and his dual-handed great sword traced a lightning-fast semicircular arc. At a downward angle of 45 degrees, he fiercely cleaved down towards Kleia. Clang! A grating sound of metal against metal rang out. Kleia held her sword with both hands, her chestnut ponytail swaying. She used the strong blade near the crossguard to firmly catch Rain's smooth cleaving slash. The two quickly parted, and then Kleia began to explain. There are 2 variations of the giant bear sword technique's defensive stance to cope with different situations. The first is similar to using a one-handed sword, applying the strong blade against the enemy's cleaving skills. The second is different. "Come, Rain, thrust your sword at me." As she spoke, Kleia gestured for Rain to attack her again. "All right, Lady Kleia, be careful." Clang! The sound of this clang was quite crisp. Kleia's dual-handed great sword stood erect, planted into the ground, perfectly blocking Rain's striding thrust. Rain was jolted so much that his wrist turned sour, almost unable to hold the sword hilt. He looked closely and saw his sword tip was precisely on the groove of Clea's dual-handed greatsword's blade that was as wide as a palm. Clea did not launch an attack, purely defending, and Rain's greatsword did not scrape and spark, moving aside to continue thrusting at Clea, because the blood groove on the greatsword restricted the sword tip. Do you understand? The second variation of the giant bear sword technique's defensive stance is designed to block the enemy's quick thrusts. When the enemy attacks swiftly, it becomes very difficult to rely on the strong blade to cope. But you need to be aware, in the selection of dual-handed greatswords, you need to choose those with single or double blood grooves. Furthermore, after blocking, you must immediately counterattack. The giant bear sword technique is not primarily a defensive sword technique. What you need is to disrupt the opponent's offensive rhythm with fierce attacks, forcing them to be consumed with defense. With Clea's concise and clear explanation, Rain had an epiphany. Rain thought about it carefully and realized it was indeed so. The giant bear sword technique encompasses 5 moves: furious slash, leap slash, smooth cleaving slash, defensive stance, and the one he hadn't learned, whirlwind slash. From the names, it's not hard to discern that out of the 5 moves, 4 are named with slash, fully demonstrating that the giant bear sword technique is primarily offensive. Unlike the one-handed sword skills, which have many thrusting motions, the moves of the giant bear sword technique are all designed to make full use of the greatsword's heavy blade, focusing mainly on powerful cleaving sword techniques. Guided by Clea's insightful instructions, Rain's progress in practicing the giant bear sword technique accelerated significantly. Having sparred many times with Clea over the past 3 days using the giant bear sword technique, Rain's militia profession level had smoothly advanced to LV4 and was now militia LV4, 18/1000. As a matter of course, he gained 1 attribute point and 1 skill point. Name: Rain Carlin. Profession: Blacksmith LV1, 5/100, /militia LV4, 18/1000. Constitution 6. Strength 9. Agility 8. Spirit 8. Remaining attribute points 1. Remaining skill points 2. Regarding this attribute point, Rain did not hurry to use it since allocating points had the special effect of restoring status. Therefore, he planned to save it for an emergency. As for the 2 skill points, Rain was still somewhat undecided whether to use them to enhance his core skills or to improve the final 2 forms of the giant bear breathing technique. Since he was undecided, Rain planned to hold on to them for the time being. Rain, the last thing I'm going to teach you today is about the secret technique of the giant bear sword technique. Clea signaled for Rain to stop practicing the defensive posture. A secret technique? Rain was slightly taken aback upon hearing Clea's words. The giant bear sword technique, including the giant bear breathing technique, is not exclusive to the Habuz family. It's widely spread among the imperial nobility. But only families that have studied the giant bear sword technique long enough can create their own secret techniques, or what could be called ultimate moves, based on the giant bear breathing technique and the giant bear sword technique. And today, I will teach you the Hobbs family's unique secret technique of the giant bear sword technique, the roaring strike. This move requires strong lung power to simulate the sonic shockwave of a bear's attack and should be executed in conjunction with the whirlwind slash, Clea said eloquently. A sonic attack combined with a physical attack? Rain quickly grasped the power of this secret technique. If both parties were of similar strength, and one suddenly unleashed the roaring strike, as long as the opponent got momentarily stunned by the unexpected sonic attack, it would be game over. One could seize the opportunity to strike down the opponent directly. To help you understand, let's demonstrate. A sly smile appeared on Clea's face. Okay, Lady Clea. Rain gripped his dual-handed greatsword tightly, with the tip pointing up at a 45-degree angle, ready in a starting position. A huge roar blasted out from Clea's red lips, and even though Rain was prepared, he only felt a gust of wind hitting his face, causing his skin to tremble violently. His eardrums were in pain, and his whole head was buzzing. Although this lasted for a very brief moment, just under half a second, by the time Rain came to his senses again, he found that Clea's dual-handed greatsword had already stopped at his neck. Seeing Rain's puzzled look just now, Clea couldn't help but laugh out loud. Cough! How about it, Rain? Did you feel the power of the roaring strike? Apparently realizing her behavior was not very ladylike, Clea coughed and said, Actually, as a woman, I'm not at an advantage in executing this strike, and I don't practice the giant bear breathing technique. So the move I just demonstrated was only a simulation. Rain nodded silently, without a word. Clea was completely correct. If it had been a powerful knight who specialized in the giant bear breathing technique executing that move, his eardrums would probably have burst and bled instantly, and he would have been left dizzy on the spot, rather than just being dazed for less than a second like just now. But in a fight between masters, who could afford to stop for 1 second? In his previous life, a 100-meter sprinter could cover 10 meters in 1 second. And in this world, with its exaggerated martial prowess, a second was enough to kill you several times over .n/o/vel/b//and .c//om. Rain realized for the first time the importance of constitution. If his constitution were strong enough, he could withstand such dizziness and other abnormal resistances, while also speeding up his physical recovery and bolstering his endurance, among other effects. It seemed he would have to devote more effort to the giant bear breathing technique and practice it diligently, since if the technique could be improved, it would enhance his physical attributes all around, especially constitution and strength, which would receive additional bonuses from training in the giant bear breathing technique. At that moment, Rain saw Clea suddenly place her great sword back onto the sword rack. While he was puzzled, he heard Clea turn around and say, Rain, I will be going back to County Town to see my father in a moment. Early tomorrow morning, I will be leaving Meister County to head to the Imperial Royal Academy. Upon hearing this news, Rain was momentarily stunned. So soon? Although he had heard Clea mention before that she would be leaving after a while, at this moment, he felt somewhat lost. Perhaps it was because of the time they had spent together that he had grown much more familiar with the younger daughter of the Count's family. n/o/vel/b//and.c//om. Let's end today's training here. If you have any issues in the future, you can seek out Shadia. Rain looked to the side and saw the chief made Shadia slightly nodding at him. Hold on a moment, Lady Clea. I still have a question about entering the transcendent path. Is the path of the knight the only way in this world? How could that be possible? Clea couldn't help but laugh. She realized she had been so focused on teaching Rain the breathing techniques and swordsmanship that she hadn't discussed some basic knowledge with him. Of course, there are far more paths than just the knight's path. Even entering the path of the knight isn't considered the strongest in the transcendence realm. For instance, all the major churches in the Empire have their own transcendent path. But the church's transcendent paths require one to become a devout follower of God, whereas the knight's path is the most stable and least dependent on external forces. It allows for achieving transcendence by tapping into one's potential. At the same time, it's also the path most accessible to ordinary people entering transcendence, Clea explained. According to records, the knight breathing method originated from our human ancestors' studies on ferocious beasts, which eventually led to developing a training method suitable for humans. The giant bear breathing technique and giant bear sword technique that you were practicing are such methods. After finishing, Rain nodded. He understood this kind of situation, because in his previous life, ancestors used 5 animal frolics for health, and Xingyi Quan mimicking 12 animals like monkeys, tigers, and bears for combat. Ferocious beasts? However, this was the first time Rain had heard of this concept, and asked with curiosity. Yes, ordinary animals under the influence of the mysterious side all have a certain chance of becoming ferocious or mutated beasts, thereby gaining much greater strength, agility, and recovery speed than their ordinary counterparts, akin to human knights. Actually, from this perspective, the transcendent paths of knights and ferocious beasts are consistent. Both break through limits in some way. Only humans practice breathing techniques, whereas animals rely more on innate talent or lineage. Look, Suddenly, Clea's slender arm swelled, bulging her hunting coat sleeve, but it quickly shrank back. Rain widened his eyes and stared intently at the transformation of Clea's arm. Giant Barbie? He was stunned. So this was the true strength of Clea. This is the strength you possess after becoming a formal knight, breaking through the physical limits, what we call limit break. Long ago, limit break was also called ferocious transformation, but later, to differentiate between humans and beasts, those who reached transcendence through breathing techniques were called knights, and this transformation was named limit break, which essentially means the same as ferocious transformation. Well, I should get going now. Clea glanced outside the window as the night deepened. Rain, the world is much broader and more dangerous than you imagine. I've taught you the giant bear breathing technique and giant bear sword technique. Work hard. I hope to be surprised by you in a year. After speaking, Clea flashed a slight smile, swung her chestnut ponytail, and left the room, her figure quickly disappearing into the darkness outside the castle. Meanwhile, in the dining room of Count Hab's mansion in Meister County Town, a bearded man dressed in noble attire with black and gold edging was elegantly carving a large chunk of beef rib, handling the pure silver knife and fork with exceptional agility. On the silver plate, pieces of beef rib, cut as neatly as tofu, were quickly forked into his mouth. Soon, all the meat on that large beef rib was in his stomach, the bones picked clean without a trace of meat left. But it didn't end there. With a series of crisp click sounds, the silver dinner knife in the man's hand sliced through the tough beef ribs like butter, sucking the marrow within into his mouth. At that moment, a beautiful serving maid respectfully offered a hot towel. The man wiped his mouth and said, "Michelle, sorry to have kept you waiting." His tone was very polite, but anyone could tell that it was merely a formality. "What is the matter?" "Baron, there is something I need to report to you." Named Michelle, the butler waved his hand, dismissing all the maids from the dining room. "News has come from Dennis that your sister, Lady Clea, seems to have nurtured a legitimate descendant at the Habsburg estate, reportedly the son of a farmer, but with notable talent in swordsmanship." As soon as the butler named Michelle mentioned the three words, Lady Clea, the middle-aged baron's face changed, obviously recalling some unpleasant memory. He elegantly sipped his red wine, paused, and asked, considering the timing, "Clea must be about to head to the Imperial City, right?" "Yes, under normal circumstances, Lady Clea should be departing for the Imperial City within 3 days. Otherwise, she might miss the opening ceremony of the Imperial Royal Academy." The Baron nodded and said, "Then let's give the face of my sister from Meister County, who possesses the strongest knight talent. And after she leaves, Michelle, have someone erase that farmer's son." His tone was so casual, as if he were merely stepping on an ant by the roadside. "As you command, Baron," Michelle said respectfully. Just as the butler was about to leave, the Baron spoke again. "By the way, about that black flame prayer ceremony we spoke of last time, when can it be held? There seems to be a small problem there. Things have been tightly wound recently, and some materials might take more time to prepare. Tell them to speed up. I don't want to wait too long." "As you command, my lord. Your will is my desire." The man in question, named Alonso Habuz, was granted his baronial title at the age of 18, as he was the eldest legitimate son of the Habuz family. Back in his study, Alonso sat in his chair, idly toying with a silver, round family crest, which was a couple sizes larger than an imperial gold coin. This was one of his habits. Whenever he needed to thoroughly consider an issue, he would spin the family crest on his finger. The craftsmanship of the Habuz family crest was extremely exquisite. It depicted a swooping eagle with high-risen wings, each feather seemingly distinguishable, and its sharp talons pointed downward as though about to capture some prey. This was no ordinary eagle, but a transcendental raptor known as a Kali bird. Once mature, this bird's wingspan could reach over 4 meters, far more ferocious than ordinary eagles. As the eldest son of the Habuz family, Alonso was supposed to be the unquestioned heir to the family, but unfortunately, he was the weakest in terms of personal strength among Count Habs's 3 children. Nearing 30, he had only just managed to step into the official knight rank, and had made little progress in the past few years. In this world, if the power disparity among heirs was not significant, inheritance followed the order of seniority, but if the gap was too large, then it was just too bad. Unfortunately for Alonso, his half-brother Descartes and his sister Clea both had exceptional talents. Descartes was already serving in the imperial military, with a promising future ahead. And Clea needs no mention, a rare genius knight of Meister County. She broke through to official knight rank at the age of 15 and was admitted to the Imperial Royal Academy for further education. The crux of the issue was that Alonso's relationship with both had been poor from childhood, certainly not helped by his mother's influence. In reversing, it was likely impossible for him personally. Thus, the sense of urgency within Alonso grew increasingly intense. He did not wish to spend his life merely as a minor baron. He stowed away the silver Cali bird crest of his family and gripped it tightly, saying, "I hope the Black Flame prayer ceremony has the effects of legend." Somewhere in the Nightingale Forest, the blood-red eyes of Savage Claw swept around the surrounding cowering gnolls. Not a single one dared meet its gaze, but it knew it had to leave this place. Standing over 7 feet tall and weighing 350 pounds, Savage Claw was a giant among gnolls, who averaged around 6 feet 3 inches and 200 pounds. Originally, it was the leader of this band of lowland gnolls, and its days had been very comfortable. But in the recent duel, it had been defeated by another, equally ferocious gnoll. The victor had emerged from the depths of the Nightingale Forest, a gnoll even stronger than it, towering over 7 feet 10 inches, with a terrifying strength. However, even though Savage Claw had been defeated, it would not die, not because of its opponent's mercy, but because of its own strength. When Savage Claw attacked at full force, a faint blue energy flow would surround it, a special energy that helped Savage Claw completely negate the air's resistance against it. This not only gave Savage Claw a moving speed far surpassing that of other gnolls, but it also enabled it to eliminate all its body odors during an attack, providing excellent stealth. This was also why Savage Claw was confident that it could live well on its own. With a heavy snort, Savage Claw left its former gnoll encampment and ran towards the eastern part of the forest. Without subordinates to command, hunting would now have to be done by Savage Claw itself. Now, it was roaming the woods near human towns, hoping for a different kind of bounty. It was getting tired of the meat of forest beasts. The meat of wild beasts could never compare to the deliciousness of human flesh, especially that of human females, which was exceptionally tender and juicy. One bite would cause red juices to splash everywhere, an utterly delightful taste. However, Savage Claw had tasted human flesh only 3 times. Although these events were in the distant past, the memories had left a profound impression, making it long for more. This was also the reason it was heading towards the eastern side of the forest, for it knew there was a human town nearby, which was the closest to it, apparently called Flashgold Town. Dusk had long fallen. The newly arrived Savage Claw, after avoiding several humans dressed in leather armor, carrying bows and swords, unknowingly approached a large fenced but open area. There, it smelled the dense, young, and tender scent of human flesh. This was the smell of younglings. The taste of younglings was generally quite delicious, which made Savage Claw's thick Adam's apple bob up and down a few times. It hadn't eaten all day, so Savage Claw decided to pick this spot. It observed and noticed that every so often a patrol of guards, clad in fine chainmail, with iron-covered oak shields in one hand and sword hilts in the other, would pass by. These must be the patrolling guards. In its own gnoll encampment, patrols were also organized. It wasn't that Savage Claw feared these weak human guards, but it knew that by killing them, it would certainly alarm other guards and thus miss out on the delicious youngling flesh. Although humans were on average weak, these guards would call for help, and if it attracted those iron men, that would be problematic, because the strength of those iron men was formidable, some almost as strong as it, or even stronger, and it didn't want to encounter them. When it came to hunting, Savage Claw was very patient. Before becoming a leader, it also had to hunt for itself. Just a little longer, and it could enjoy fresh and tender meat. In OVL, B //JNN. At that moment, in the western dormitory of the outer court, all the young servants had already laid down. Soft snores rose and fell in waves, and the day's archery training had left the arms of most servants incredibly sore. Only Bushy-browed In tossed and turned with worries in his mind, and so his sleep was unsettled. He felt as though in his half-asleep state he had heard a bang as a door opened. "Wonder which bastard was that loud," he muttered. But soon he sensed something wrong because In heard a strange chewing sound. Crunch, crunch. Judging from the sound, it seemed to be coming from near the entrance of the servants' dormitory. In the middle of the night, someone was eating? No, that's not right. In this large dormitory, besides himself and Freckles and a few others, which servant had such luxury? Wasn't Rain's original position by the door? Who's sleeping there now? He couldn't remember, but the very thought of Rain made his thick eyebrows furrow, and suddenly his thoughts became clearer. So, with a bit of grogginess, he propped up his upper body, huffing and puffing as he looked towards the doorway. Just as he was about to curse out loud, a strong scent of blood wafted over, sending a shiver down his spine, and his skin broke out in goosebumps, instantly making him fully alert. He saw a dark, hulking figure squatting by the door, cradling something in his arms and devouring it with big gulps. Immediately, he realized that none of the young servants had such a massive size. Even being the biggest among them, he was still much smaller than the other. The dark figure squatting by the door seemed like a small mountain. This made his thick eyebrows think of some very eerie things, and large beads of sweat instantly appeared on his forehead. His heart started pounding violently at once. He slowly lay back down, but his trembling hands betrayed his inner turmoil. Am I separated from that bed by the door by 7 people? No, 6 people. That monster should leave after it's had its fill, right? Mom, bless me. I don't want to die yet. Dad, tell me what should I do? The mentally crumbling thick eyebrows seemed completely at a loss for what to do. That's right. There were guards. Every so often, a small patrol team of guards would pass by the young servants' dormitory. I used to be annoyed by their noise. Seizing onto this lifeline, Thick Eyebrows immediately began to listen attentively for the rhythmic sound of footsteps outside. Unfortunately, it seemed that the patrolling team had just passed, or hadn't arrived yet. Listening closely, the sinister crunch-crunch of chewing actually became clearer. At this moment, he had never hoped so much for the arrival of the guards. 1 minute. 2 minutes. Time passed agonizingly slow. Finally, he heard the somewhat heavy, rhythmic footsteps and yelled at the top of his lungs. Help! There's a monster! Are you crazy, Thick Eyebrows? Stop screaming nonsense. The freckle-faced boy sleeping next to him was the first to be woken by his shout. Yeah, Thick Eyebrows, what are you doing? Asked the son of the tanner, rubbing his eyes. The young servants, one after another, were woken by Thick Eyebrows' thunderous scream and started complaining about him. But the next second, they all froze, their eyes bulging as they stared at the massive figure standing in the doorway. By the weak moonlight, the group of young servants could barely make out that the figure was humanoid, clad in torn leather shoulder guards and chainmail, with a protruding forehead and dense fur on the exposed parts, but clearly not a human head. It was unmistakably the gigantic head of a hyena. Its face was ferocious and ugly. At that moment, the creature was gnawing on a long human thigh, with fresh red blood and bits of flesh dripping from its gaping maw. Savage Claw was very unhappy, having planned to secretly eat 2 cubs and then take 2 more away for the next day, but its perfect plan for the night was ruined by a cub's piercing scream. Looking at the half-eaten cub on the ground, Savage Claw knew it was time to go. The human guards were about to come. It seemed that taking 2 was no longer an option, but 1 should be manageable. Then, Savage Claw grabbed a young servant who was petrified near the door, burst through the wooden door, and dashed outside. The patrolling guards of Habsburg's estate had rushed towards the young servant's dormitory upon hearing Thick Eyebrows scream, and now they too had reached the entrance, ready to burst in. What they didn't expect was the wooden door to suddenly splinter apart. The shattered wooden planks shot towards them like arrows. The next second, A ferocious monster, over 2 meters tall, charged out from inside, knocking the two guards blocking the way and sending them flying 7 or 8 meters before making its escape. Before long, the entire Habsburg estate was ablaze with lights. Rain, who was in another servant's dormitory, woke up immediately after George shouted that alert. He heard clearly that, besides screaming for help, George also cried out the words monster. Without hesitation, Rain shook George awake and instructed him to wake everyone else. Rain himself quickly went to the door and looked outside, just as he found it strange that there was no movement from the dormitory across from them. A 5-man Manor patrol headed briskly toward the opposite dormitory. The next second, Rain's heart clenched violently, his scalp tingled, and his pupils contracted. Before his eyes, a massive shadow burst out from the opposite dormitory, shattering the door into fragments that instantly covered the few guards like a torrential downpour. As the guards raised their hands to shield themselves, 2 of them were sent flying. Without pausing, this enormous humanoid shadow, carrying a skinny, shirtless servant boy, quickly leaped over the fence. Judging by its speed, it was definitely faster than Bolt's 100-meter sprint that Rain had seen in his previous life. Under the moonlight, Rain could vaguely see the strong build of the creature, its hyena-like ugly face, and its thick, hairy arms. What is this monster? Rain was shocked. A sense of crisis filled his heart immediately. In Rain's mind, with his professional panel, as long as he grinded slowly and progressed step by step, he would eventually reach the peak in this world. But the scene before him snapped him back to reality. Sometimes, even if he did not seek danger, danger might actively seek him out. If that monster had chosen their servant's dormitory, could they only rely on luck and sit waiting for death? No, never. He needed to double his efforts. Rain's face was as still as water, but his heart was churning. Soon, the Habsburg Manor was in turmoil, and noise erupted everywhere. Guards rushed over from all directions, one after another. Guards wearing nose-guard helmets, chainmail, and carrying sword shields or spear shields arrived. Woof, woof, woof. Some guards also brought greyhounds, relying on the dog's keen sense of smell and the tracks on the ground. The guards quickly determined the direction and traces of the fleeing monster. Yet the guards still did not release the dogs to track it down, seemingly waiting for someone. Rain and the other servants had already walked out and were standing from a distance, looking at the cordoned dormitory opposite them, at the pale-faced servants who were either vomiting or sobbing, and couldn't help feeling empathetic. If it weren't for the protection of the goddess of fortune from the unknown, if the monster had chosen their servant's dormitory to hunt in, the terrible consequences made George and the other servants shudder with fear. After a while, a towering figure clad in solid plate armor and a black cloak came over, and the guards saluted. Lord Lloyd. The middle-aged man with a commanding presence was none other than Sir Lloyd, the steward and knight of the Habsburg Manor. What's the situation? The arrival of Sir Lloyd immediately brought order to what had previously been a somewhat chaotic scene. Such was the deterrent power of a true knight's transcendent strength, which quickly stabilized people's hearts. 2 servant boys are dead, and 1 is missing, likely abducted. According to the descriptions from the Manor's patrol guards and the huge footprints left on the ground, it appears that the attacker of the servant boys was a rogue, werewolf-like creature, immensely large and powerful, far more so than an ordinary werewolf, reported a guard who looked like a squad leader. Take me to the scene. The knight with golden hair and a goatee, Sir Lloyd, said in a deep voice after hearing the report from the guard. At once, my lord. 2 chainmail-clad guards led the way as the group made their way to the servant boys' dormitory where Humbert and the others resided. The dormitory's door had been utterly demolished, leaving a gaping hole nearly 3 meters high and over 2 meters wide. The surrounding wooden boards were shattered into jagged splinters. According to the guard's account, the werewolf-like creature had simply smashed through the door. The level of strength required. Sir Lloyd couldn't help but fall into deep thought. Sir Lloyd, this must be an exceedingly rare and aggressive werewolf-like creature. A deep male voice sounded from behind Sir Lloyd. It was none other than Sir Perez, the night instructor of the noble science at Meister County. Lord Perez, the guard saluted him. Sir Perez, do you have any suggestions? Sir Lloyd asked, turning to Perez. The forest at night is not our domain. I suggest we bolster the manor's nighttime defenses and at daybreak. Contact the new chief of security of Flashgold Town, Sir Hamilton, and organize a team to search together. Unexpectedly, Perez, although looked imposing, suggested a highly cautious approach. Indeed, battling a ferocious, werewolf-like creature in the woods at night was a daunting prospect, even for a knight who had stepped into the realm of the transcendent. More critically, the nighttime forest was not the domain of humans. One might encounter creatures more terrifying than a ferocious transformed werewolf, which could lead not only to a failed hunt, but also to significant casualties. After a brief consideration, Sir Lloyd nodded in agreement and turned to a messenger beside him. Increase the guard, especially around the servants' quarters, the stables, and animal pens. Also, send someone immediately to Flashgold Town to notify them about the encounter with the ferocious werewolf-like creature. The creature may not return here, but the possibility of it heading to Flashgold Town in search of food is not negligible. They should be prepared. As you command, Lord Lloyd. After saluting, the messenger quickly mounted a horse and left the manor. While Rain and George listened intently to the conversation between Sir Lloyd and Lord Perez from a distance, Humbert, also dressed in chainmail and a swordsmanship instructor for servant boys, hurried over to them and said, "The servant boy training is suspended. You will all follow me and return to Flashgold Town immediately." This left George and the other servant boys exchanging puzzled glances, but Rain, after a moment's thought, understood why Sir Lloyd had made this decision. In the wake of the manor being attacked by a ferocious transformed werewolf, keeping a large number of servant boys there before the danger was resolved would only increase the pressure on Habsburg Manor. If a large number of servant boys were to be killed or injured, Sir Lloyd, as the principal person in charge of the manor, could not escape responsibility. Even as a knight, he would face accountability from the nobles above him. Therefore, the best course of action was naturally to send the servant boys home. For the unfortunate servant boys who had died, arrangements needed to be made to compensate and console their families, minimizing the impact. N/O/vel/B//N.C///OM. Under the escort of Humbert and several other guards, the group of servant boys made their way back to Flashgold Town amidst the cover of night. Thud, thud, thud. In the shocked expression of old Rain when he opened the door. Rain entered his home in Flashgold Town, where aside from his sister Bohe, who had already been fast asleep, Rain's mother and Anna had also been woken up by the noise of the door and had come out of their rooms. "Rain, why have you come back? What has happened at the manor?" With the cold wind from the door blowing on him, old Rain became much more alert, and seeing his son's expression, he guessed that something had happened. Rain thought for a moment and decided to confront his parents directly, as he estimated that the news would spread soon. Moreover, if the ferocious werewolf continued to hunt humans around Flashgold Town, farmers like his father, who worked on the outskirts, would be amongst the most vulnerable groups. "Father, just now, one of the servant boys' dormitories at the manor was attacked by a werewolf. 2 people were killed on the spot, and another was kidnapped." "Ah! Hiss!" Old Rain couldn't help but suck in a cold breath. He was aware of werewolves, having seen one from a distance in his youth. These fierce humanoid creatures generally lived deep in the forest, so why had it come out this time? However, don't worry too much. Knight Sir Lloyd and Sir Perez at the manor managed the situation on site. Flashgold Town has also been notified, so I believe the matter should be resolved soon. To reassure his family, Rain did not mention that the attacker was a werewolf over 2 meters tall, as strong as a fully trained knight, because mentioning the details would only increase his family's worry. "Mother, please don't go to the woods to gather firewood or anything else tomorrow. You should be safe if you stay in town." After thinking it over, Rain turned to his father and said, "And father, it's best if you don't go to the farm outside town tomorrow." "All right, I'll listen to you." Old Rain nodded. Ever since Rain had told them that the new sheriff, Lord Hamilton, had invited him to join the night watchman, old Rain believed that Rain had grown up. He was no longer a child who needed their care, but an adult capable of bearing responsibilities. Thus, the persuasiveness of Rain's words greatly increased. Rain nodded, and he and Anna went upstairs. Now that Rain had returned, Anna would have to share a room with Bohi, while Rain would sleep in his old room, as usual. But just as Rain had lain down not long ago, suddenly, there was another knock at Rain's house. When vigilant old Rain peeked through the door slit and saw 3 night watchmen holding torches and clad in black leather coats, he immediately opened the door. Rain also came down from the 2nd floor. The leading, somewhat familiar, and lean night watchman said, "Rain, we're short-handed tonight, and just now Lord Sheriff Hamilton informed me to have you join the night patrol in this area." "Okay, just give me 2 minutes," Rain agreed without hesitation, because he was familiar with this night watchman, whose patrol area included the area near his house. If it had been somewhere else, Rain might have considered it further. But patrolling his own doorstep, for the safety of his family, he would definitely agree. Rain turned around and went upstairs, planning to take a short sword from the storage room on the 2nd floor. "Are you here to get the equipment?" "No need for trouble. Everything has been prepared for you." The night watchman behind him took out a whole set of black leather armor, a bow, a quiver, and a bastard sword, and handed them to Rain. This immediately delighted Rain. He hadn't expected the other party to be so thoughtful. By the time Rain had put on the standard night watchman gear, apart from his slightly youthful face and shorter stature, he looked no different from the other night watchmen. "Rain, be careful," his mother instructed with a worried face. She had originally thought that Rain joining the night watchman was a good thing, but now that a crisis had occurred and her child had to deal with it personally, her brows were furrowed with unresolved worries. "Don't worry, Mother. I will take good care of myself." After saying this, Rain bid farewell to his parents and began the night patrol with 3 night watchmen. "Rain, I heard that the incident involved the trainee servants from the manor," asked the efficient night watchman. "Yes. I personally witnessed that ferocious werewolf charge out of the servants' dormitory in a violent frenzy, instantly knocking a guard flying and escaping," said Rain with a serious expression, and OVL, B/JNN. Thinking of the other's strength and agility, which were far beyond ordinary, he still felt a trace of fear. If this level of strength were converted according to the system's quantified standards, wouldn't it be around 18 or even 20 points? It was significantly beyond the limits that an ordinary person could achieve. The other 3, seeing Rain's solemn expression, exchanged looks, and their expressions became much more serious. In their eyes, this young man, who had single-handedly dealt with 2 criminals last time and won Lord Hamilton's praise, though young, was skilled and meticulous. Since he was giving it much importance, it seemed that the werewolf's strength was truly formidable, not to be underestimated. No wonder Lord Hamilton emphasized that any night watchman who spotted the werewolf should immediately fire a signal. As long as it was within Flashgold Town, within half a minute, other night watchman squads would continuously arrive. And Lord Hamilton would also arrive immediately. During the conversation, Rain quickly learned what their mission was. They were in charge of patrolling and ensuring safety on these 2 streets. "Let's light up these lamps first," said the efficient night watchman squad leader. Normally, under no unusual circumstances, not all the town's street lamps, oil lamps, were lit to save fuel by turning off a few. Only now did Rain just find out that the street lamps in the town used a mixture with whale oil as the main ingredient for fuel. The oil consumption of a single lamp was not high, but if it were dozens or even hundreds of lamps, the cost would be substantial. Seeing the night watchman carrying out the lighting, Rain volunteered, "Let me try." As a soon-to-be night watchman, it was always good to be diligent. It would allow him to quickly integrate with the veterans. Just as Rain put a match inside the lampshade to light the lantern, suddenly the system alert sounded. Ding! Detecting that the host is refilling the street lamp, triggering job change. Night watchman. Promotion to night watchman. Prerequisite conditions are 1. Militia LV3 or above. 2. Strength 7 points or above. Agility 6 points or above. Constitution 6 points or above. 3. Any swordsmanship LV3 or above. Any archery LV2 or above. Current conditions do not meet. Promotion to night watchman failed. Oh, it turns out to be a new combat profession. Rain couldn't help but be overjoyed. After scrutinizing the system's description, he realized that only his archery skill did not meet the requirements. In recent days, although he had been training with the bow during the daytime servant training, because Rain hadn't used any skill points, his archery was still at level 1, 12 out of 100. To advance to LV2, it would take at least 2 to 3 months of effort. Rain took just a second to think before deciding to add a skill point to the basic archery. Although he originally planned to use that skill point on the core skill Blacksmith Strength or the giant bear breathing technique, neither option was likely to bring as much benefit as a career transition to a combat role. The reason was simple. Just like the apprentice blacksmith gained an increase in strength attribute and core skills upon promotion. Therefore, it was reasonable to speculate that transitioning from militia to night watchman would likely bring gains in attributes, and perhaps even new core skills. It might bring a qualitative change. If the ferocious werewolf decided to make a counterattack at this moment, with Rain's current strength, the gap was too wide to withstand. Why not transition to night attendant? Because there simply wasn't enough time, and one only has one life. Moving to the obviously stronger combat career, night watchman, was the best choice at the moment. Skill points, attribute points, or even other professional panels, as long as one is alive, there will always be opportunities. Rain thought this through very clearly. Previously, Rain had always had a doubt. Is the career panel militia only and solely followed by night attendant? It turns out that is not the case. It's just because he hadn't met specific trigger conditions. Previously, for the blacksmith apprentice's promotion to blacksmith, the trigger needed an item, a blacksmith's hammer. But this time, the trigger condition for transitioning to night watchman was surprisingly refilling the street lamp oil. This left Rain momentarily baffled by this transition or promotion trigger requirement. Shaking his head, Rain decided not to delve into this issue further for now. Completing the transition was the most important thing for now. He hoped it would bring a surprise. All conditions for transitioning from militia to night watchman are met. Don't transition to night watchman. Note, transitioning to night watchman will overwrite the militia panel. Upon seeing this, Rain chose yes without any hesitation. Ding! Transition successful. Transition to night watchman successful. Strength +1, agility +1, spirit +1. Acquired night watchman core skills. Danger perception LV1, passive. Dark vision, passive. Danger perception LV1, passive as night watchmen guard humanity through the nights. Your perception of danger is beyond ordinary people. Dark vision, passive as night watchmen frequently fight at night. Your vision in the darkness is like that of nocturnal animals. Wow! Not only did he gain 3 attributes, but both core skills were passive. This was somewhat unexpected for Rain. He saw that the word militia had vanished from the original militia panel, and in its place were the large characters, Night Watchman. Under the panel title, besides the icons like the giant bear breathing technique and giant bear sword technique, there were now 2 new icons added. 2 new icons flashed around the edges, and Rain first focused his attention on an icon shaped like an eye. Immediately, a line of small text appeared below the icon. Core skill, dark vision, passive. Dark vision, passive effect. Your vision in unlit or dimly lit environments is greatly enhanced, almost to the level of nocturnal animals. Upon seeing this skill effect description, Rain looked around, and indeed, everything was different. This night environment suddenly gave Rain a sense of inexplicable familiarity. At the same time, he now looked around at the pitch-black areas the streetlights couldn't reach, places that were previously unclear to him. But now, it felt almost like twilight vision to him. Though slightly dim, Rain could see very clearly. For example, in that dark corner, a rat had just emerged from its hole, sniffing around east and west, planning to find food. A cockroach had just crawled into a shadowy pile of garbage. Rain instantly grasped the significant advantage this passive ability provided him. It made fighting at night akin to fighting with night vision goggles, an unmistakably powerful tool. Furthermore, Rain immediately noticed that there was no experience bar below this icon. This indicated that the dark vision passive skill could not be enhanced by adding skill points. Rain? What's wrong? An elite night watchman nearby asked as he noticed Rain suddenly freeze. Oh, nothing. I just thought of something. Rain quickly recovered, realizing he had been focusing on the newly appeared night watchman panel and had become somewhat distracted. Since you've selected it, let's continue moving forward, the elite night watchman called out. Okay. As Rain moved forward, he started examining the effects of the second core skill. Core skill, Danger Perception LV1, Passive. Danger Perception LV1, Passive Effect. Your awareness of danger in your surroundings is slightly enhanced. Note, the sharpness of danger perception is related to the user's spirit. The stronger the spiritual power, the more acute the perception. After a brief reflection, Rain felt that this core skill was the biggest gain of the night. If dark vision straightforwardly endowed Rain with night vision capabilities, then danger perception granted him an animal-like intuition for danger. N/O/vel/B//B// and C///OM. In a sense, the importance of this ability could definitely be ranked first. In this transcendent world, events beyond control were not uncommon, such as the recent violent werewolf man incident Rain encountered. Before having the ability to directly contend, being able to sense danger in advance and evade it was a survival law for most animals. Rain believed this was equally applicable to himself, especially before he was strong enough. Rain and a few elite night watchmen patrolled cautiously through the night until the sky started to brighten. They had not encountered the violent werewolf man, nor seen any distress signals from other night watchmen. It seemed that the violent werewolf man had not been in Flashgold Town or Habsburg Manor last night. Just as Rain and his companions were preparing to end their night patrol and each head back to rest, a messenger came hurrying over to inform them to gather at the administration hall entrance. Lord Hamilton himself was going to lead a joint team with the Habsburg Manor to enter the Nightingale Forest and go after this monster. After a moment's thought, Rain decided he wanted to witness it as well. Although he was unsure who would lead the team from Habsburg Manor, he assumed it would be someone with a strength similar to Lord Hamilton, possibly Knight Lloyd or Instructor Perez. With several knights of such caliber leading the way, along with numerous elite night watchmen and manor guards, Rain felt the risk was still manageable. The main reason was that after his class changed to night watchman, his strength had further improved, and he was eager to see what a real battle between strong combatants looked like. Furthermore, although he had not been very close to the several young servants who had died, Rain also felt a pang of sorrow. After all, they had lived and trained together, sharing meals every day, and now they were gone. If safety was controllable, he wouldn't mind striking that monster a few fierce blows. It's a pity that he doesn't have a handy dual-handed greatsword right now. If he had a dual-handed greatsword, Rain could have fully unleashed the power of the giant bear sword technique, and his combat strength would have been further enhanced. At the moment, he only has a standard-issue bastard sword from the Night Watcher's army. However, the bastard sword would do, with a slightly longer hilt allowing for two-handed use, though the blade was too light to fully bring out the power of the giant bear sword technique. Soon, Rain and the elite of the night watchmen met Hamilton in front of the city hall, clad in knight armor and wielding a sword and shield. Fully armed, Hamilton's imposing figure combined with his nearly square stern face made his sheriff presence quite commanding. Upon seeing Rain, he nodded slightly as a gesture and didn't have time to exchange more than a few words with him. Once everyone had gathered, Hamilton began briefing them. Just now, a good number of people from Habsburg Manor have entered the Nightingale Forest to the west and have roughly located the ferocious werewolf with the help of hawks and dogs. The creature is cunning and is currently hiding in a secluded valley. Now, our team, along with the Habsburg Manor's team, will advance in 3 groups to encircle and capture the ferocious werewolf. It dawned on Rain that the Manor's hawks and greyhounds had set off first to ascertain the werewolf's location. A clever tracking method indeed. After a simple mobilization ceremony, Hamilton donned his round, bucket-shaped plate armor helmet, took the lead personally, and swiftly headed toward the designated location with more than 20 elite night watchmen, including Rain. This time, the Night Watcher's army was responsible for the north side of the valley, which was furthest from Flashgold Town, so time was quite tight. Nightingale Forest. Inside a hidden valley, Savage Claw, feasting heartily on a young beast, glanced upwards at several eagles in the sky with his green, oily eyes. These eagles seemed a bit odd, constantly circling and calling directly above him, but he didn't care much about them. The place he occupied was a carefully chosen valley with 3 different exits leading outside. Even if humans came seeking revenge, they could do nothing to him, and he might even catch more meat to enjoy. If the Iron Men came, he would just burrow deep into the forest, where humans would not dare to follow. Woof, woof, woof. A burst of barking suddenly arose from the western entrance of the valley. This made Savage Claw immediately vigilant, and he put down the pitiful young beast, looking up to see. If he was not certain about the eagles, the barking confirmed that humans had indeed tracked him down. Suddenly, a slim and lean greyhound burst out of the dense woods. Upon catching sight of Savage Claw, it began barking excitedly. If not for their significant difference in size, the greyhound would have surely charged at him. Such an annoying little thing. A human's lapdog. Savage Claw's paws dug in, instantly sending dirt flying and creating a small depression in the ground. His massive form shot forward like an arrow toward the greyhound. Whimper. The greyhound's eyes filled with terror, and it immediately turned around to return through the dense forest the way it came. Although the greyhound was not powerful in combat, its long and strong limbs made it very fast when running. Even though Savage Claw was faster, the dense trees in the forest made it difficult to kill the greyhound immediately. Common Language found it. It's right here, n/o/vel/b/n.c//om. Noisy human voices followed. Savage Claw realized the situation seemed to be turning sour. He rolled his green, oily eyes and halted his chase, quickly turning around to head for another exit at the south side of the valley. He quickly left the noisy commotion behind, which pleased Savage Claw. These foolish humans, making such a fuss and ending up with nothing. They must have quite the expression on their faces. Tomorrow or the day after, I'll make a comeback with a counterattack. Heh. This time I didn't get to eat the freshest, juiciest human females. A regret I must remedy. As Savage Claw hurried along, thoughts like these crossed its mind, its eyes a gleaming, cunning green, flashing with sly satisfaction. Woof, woof, woof. Suddenly, a chorus of barking erupted from the entrance to the southern valley. This caused Savage Claw to change color and come to an immediate halt, leaving behind 2 deep furrows in the ground. Damn it, the humans know about this southern exit too. Savage Claw glanced hatefully in that direction and then made for the northern exit of the valley. It was their last way out. At this moment, Savage Claw's state of mind was no longer the calm and serene one it had had at the start. But it wasn't entirely in a panic either. As it ran, it muttered, "Lucky for me, I was prepared in advance, or else I would have been caught in a pincer attack by the humans." As Savage Claw neared the northern exit of the valley, it deliberately slowed down, listening carefully for a while, and hearing no dogs barking, revealed a satisfied smile. Stupid humans. You think you can catch your grandpa, Savage Claw? Dream on. After that, Savage Claw sprinted towards the northern exit. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. A dense volley of arrows gave Savage Claw a huge fright, but luckily it was quick to react. Its large and strong body immediately produced a light cyan flow of air, and its speed surged dramatically, allowing it to dodge most of the arrow storm. Savage Claw dashed behind a large tree for cover, peering intently ahead. There, at the northern exit of the valley, loomed several humans clad in leather armor, bows in hand, and among them, leading the group, was an unusual iron skin. This team was none other than the Night Watcher's army, led by the Iron Skin Hamilton, the Sword and Shield Knight. Although the sun had just risen, casting a dim morning light within the Nightingale Forest, fog blurred the vision, and dense vegetation under the patchy tree shadows meant visibility wasn't all that great. Fortunately, Rain now possessed the passive ability Dark Vision, which allowed him to clearly make out the vicious humanoid jackal-wolf figure. Standing over 2 meters tall, its limbs were long and powerful. It wore a shabby mix of leather and chainmail armor that seemed to be cobbled together from various human mercenaries, put on in a hurry and fitting poorly. The creature didn't hold any weapons, but its claws gleamed coldly. The child servant it had been carrying was nowhere to be seen, its fate easily imagined. While Rain and his companions observed the beast, Savage Claw was sizing them up as well. Iron skins are too tough to deal with, and there are so many human archers around. This made Savage Claw extinguish the idea of a fight to the death. It immediately turned and rushed towards the valley's southern exit. Faced with an iron skin, it would rather confront a horde of ordinary human soldiers. But as Savage Claw approached the southern exit, it was shocked to find there stood another iron skin wielding a dual-handed greatsword, alongside dozens of soldiers in chainmail, nasal helmets, and holding various weapons. At that moment, Savage Claw's heart plummeted. Not giving up hope, it made a mad dash for the first exit, the western side of the valley, only to find yet another iron skin with a sword and shield, and a group of human soldiers there as well. Savage Claw was in despair. The next second, a fierce look crossed Savage Claw's face. Now, leaving through the western and southern exits is out of the question. There's still human territories. Who knows what other traps await me there? So the only way out is the northern valley exit, back into the depths of the forest, where I can catch my breath. Having made up its mind, Savage Claw started to sprint with all its might, a gray-black shadow once again dashing at high speed towards the northern exit where Hamilton and Rain were positioned.